Hey everybody, welcome to Modern Day Debate. Today we have Mark Reid and the Hake Report debating, is the Great Reset real? Hake, take it away.
Well, thank you, Justin, and thank you to Modern Day Debate, and shout out to the live chat viewers and the podcast listeners, and thank you to Mark Reid, Atheism, for debating me tonight or today. The satanic cult of liberalism is the new religion that this Great Reset thing that's being pushed, and I say it's not strictly a conspiracy, although I'm sure that there are many secretive things that are happening behind the scenes, and many of them may not even be legal, which would be classified as conspiracy because it's piracy and it's secretive. But they're doing it out in the open now because the people are so corrupt. We've seen Christendom weaken. It's no secret that the Christian world has gone down. Men have gone down. The many white majority countries have been on decline for a long time morally and in terms of their strength. And so it's ripe for exploitation and for subversion. And that's what we've been seeing really for, man, it feels like 200 years or maybe a little bit less than that. I'm not sure. But ever since the Civil War, I don't know. We've had this false religion of this antichrist religion of democracy and women's rights, and some of those rights are kind of imposing on other people's rights, fathers and children's. Climate justice, climate shutdowns, human rights, anti-racism, and of course the communist shutdowns in the name of the virus. And then we heard these catchphrases in recent years: build back better. Sleepy Joe Biden, phony Catholic over there, the phony politician who's the president of the United States, and some other group, maybe the World Economic Forum, was it theirs? Build back better. It's such a hokey, phony catchphrase, but it's kind of describes the sort of communist mindset, if you will, or the satanic mindset of destroy and build back up in your image. And your image is not for what's right. It's not for what normal people are about. It's for this false religion of liberalism. Overwhelm the system with, you see it at the southern border of the United States, overwhelm the system with illegal immigration, invasion, and just break that system and say, oh, we have to feel sorry for these people and they're just here for a better life. It's catering to, we have this liberalism that caters to women. It's female-minded liberal male thinking. It caters to Black Americans and Blacks around the world, and it appeals to their false victim mindset, and it appeals to the ego of people to get them to fight, divide and conquer, and pretend like they're friends when really they're wolves in sheep's clothing. This replacement is not going to be with something better. This reset, it's not with normal people thinking, but it's liberal values. I'm sure, again, much is done in secret. Much is always done in secret, no matter who you are or what group you're talking about. But they are openly replacing us, subverting us, watering down our rights and our individual power, and undermining self-determination. You will own nothing and you will be happy, they say. And, a lot of us in that rent culture, like, what's the harm in that? But they're mama spirit micromanaging meddlers. These people who want to, they're self-important. They think that they know better how to run societies in the world than the local people who are running their own lives. And they don't have normal people goals. They do-gooder stuff, they do some good things, right? Figure out how to spread, humanitarian aid more efficiently in the cases of crisis. But that leads to their self-importance. They lick their chops at a crisis. And they seem to drum up crises that normal people don't see as a major crisis. again, wolves in sheep's clothing, not to be trusted, power hungry, don't care about what's right. Men don't think like this. Some of you guys may have caught the historical expert Eric Prince, ERIK, former Blackwater founder, the military contractor that was undermined by the Obama administration. Very effective guy and very effective group. He exposed the socialists on the Sean Ryan show last month. There was this Hernando de Soto economist whom he cited out of Peru. And basically ownership, which is not what they want, allows for individual upward mobility, the way to make your own life without being dependent on the government or these do-gooders. But that's not what the Great Reset types want. They want frozen rental culture. They love the fact that money is hardly worth anything anymore. And they just want to take away your independence and your manhood, and they want to be the father and replace the fathers. It's a shame. So that's my argument that the Great Reset is indeed real.
All right. Hey, thank you very, very much. Real quick before I pass things off to Mark for his 10-minute opening, everyone don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We've got 200 people watching right now, so 37 likes, we can do much better than that. Mark, take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much there, Justin. I'll just share my screen and just let me when I am good to go.
There we go. Carry on, Mark. It's all yours.
Fantastic, thank you. And I want to thank Modern Day Debates. Thank you for moderating, Justin, and thanks for James providing opposition. And thank you very much for your time in listening to me. So what is actually the Great Reset? And it isn't what you may think it is. I want to go through what it is, what it entails, and whether it actually is a thing. So first off, I want to talk about what the reset means. It was originally based on a book by How New Ways of Living and Working Drive Post-Crash Prosperity. Richard Florida wrote it. It deals with recovery from the global financial crisis, if you remember the housing bubble collapse. It sort of suggested ways we could change the way that we ran Wall Street, and not a lot of it was implemented. It really was just a book about how we could change the way we're doing things. Now, Florida sort of compared it to the migration of people from the countryside to urban areas in the late 1800s. Okay. So that was what he described as the first Great Reset. The second one was Roosevelt's New Deal that brought the US out of recession. Florida equated the situation we're currently into these resets coming out of economic decline and facing a change in the industrial landscape. Karl Schwab wrote a book about how COVID-19 disrupted our social and economic systems and what changes would we need to create a more inclusive, resilient, and sustainable world going forward. I'll be showing why this has largely been ignored as well. Now, I want to stress that both of these books are very vague and do not contain much in the information of any substantial policy recommendations. They are more a guide to how we can move forward from the COVID-19 crisis and provide some general recommendations. First off, we have to understand that the reset is largely focused on a structural change in the industry. Currently, we're going through the fourth industrial revolution. The first three marked changes in workforce and skill sets, destruction of traditional employment roles in industry. There's always been doomsayers who lament that technological progress will destroy society, but these Luddites, they've never been correct about this. And we live in probably the best time ever, where children don't have to reach into dangerous machines or sweep chimneys or endanger themselves, where we have medicine, technological progress. It's never been the destruction of society like they keep calling out as. Now, one of these examples is the whaling industry. It used to be one of the biggest industries ever. It vanished in about half a century. One of a huge industry reduced to almost nothing, and sort of this is the example of where they have been replaced by technological progress. Another industry was the horse industry. There were all kinds of people working in the horse industry. In about, again, 50 years, the automobile rendered that industry almost non-existent. And sure, there's still people that do work with horses and in the horse industry, but it was not the sort of 20-something million horses that used to be on the streets every day. So currently we're living in the fourth industrial revolution: automation, Internet of Things, 3D printing, and yes, even creator-driven interactive entertainment like YouTube marks communication and productivity that we've never seen before. The reset talks about our best way to implement this technology into industry and improve the productivity of the industry. Now, this will render jobs obsolete. What the reset's focused on is getting people into alternative occupations, retraining and upskilling so they're not left impoverished by the change in industry. So if someone works on a production line for car manufacturing, for instance, automation lays them off, there's sufficient resources are diverted to train them in another work or another area of the business, so they're just not laid off and subject to poverty. It's in this way, the advance of technology doesn't destroy jobs, it moves them elsewhere. But what we have to do is have the resources to move the workforce with the jobs. And people that don't do that, I find themselves unable to capitalize on a changing employment landscape. Now, the Great Reset was also designed to think greener and divert funds away from propping up fossil fuel companies. Climate change is a reality that some people would rather look away from and pretend isn't happening. However, if you choose to live in denial of the obvious, a cleaner environment is always better. People do want smog-free cities and cleaner air, as this makes a healthier and better life. Here, it's estimated that 75 to 199 million tons of plastic waste is currently in our oceans. Further 33 billion pounds of plastic entering the marine environment every year, mostly washing up on beaches. And things like moving towards biodegradables, which was suggested by the book, is a better outcome for everybody. So the green growth that the sort of this book talks about didn't actually happen. It was, or rather a token amount happened. In the United States, by some estimates, taxpayers pay about $20 billion every year to the fossil fuel industry. To quote a conservative economist, Gib Metcalf, these subsidies offer little, if any, benefit in form of oil patch jobs, lower prices, or energy security for anybody. In Australia, the Conservative government implemented a gas-fired recovery that doubled down on fossil fuels rather than doing the greener alternative. So the world produces about 381 million tons of plastic waste yearly. This is set to double by 2034. Only half of it's biodegradable and only 9% gets recycled. My point is, if the Great Reset is a thing, the governments of the world have not done anything significant to implement it. The forum also suggests the wealth gap between the growing rich and poor is getting wider. People are unable to own homes. This was exacerbated by the pandemic, where the poor were disproportionately affected. They were losing jobs and income at a much higher rate because they generally worked in the service industry, not primary industries. And the service industry was harder hit. It's interesting to note that during the global financial crisis, when the housing market in the US collapsed, the US struggled to get out of the downturn because the banks had to be bailed out and companies generally divert funds to shareholders, while the COVID downturn was more easily addressed due to a stimulus package given to household and individuals under the CARE Act. This jump-started the economy with people buying things, and it recovered far better than out of the housing collapse. So the Davos Summit was supposed to be themed the Great Reset in 2021. It didn't happen. It was postponed 2022. And while there were some items on the agenda for a sustainable industry and digital inclusion, largely the focus was on the implications for Europe, with the war breaking out in Ukraine and the fate of European power system, the power system, with sanctions on Russia affecting gas from Russia. So what's got to be understood is that the conference has only speakers, and they give loose ideas of how to progress into the future. There's been relatively little actual policy change. The US speaker was John Kerry, and he sort of talked a big game about moving away from fossil fuels. Money from corporations is still flowing into fossil fuels, with companies like JP Morgan and Bank of America still funneling money into these companies. So really the Great Reset is a buzzword. It's a PR campaign for the World Economic Forum, who admittedly they do talk about change, especially the change to a new industry technologies. It's just a loose compilation of ideas of how we are going to organize industry and financial systems in the future. There's no conspiracy or collaboration between nations to enforce this, and each country is generally making their own decisions about policy and how they want to proceed. Largely, it seems to be speeches about action without much action itself. As sort of Naomi Klein observed. I highly recommend Naomi Klein. She's a writer. She wrote No Logo, which I really enjoyed, on corporate power structures and how jobs are moving away from first world nations into third world nations. Very good. At the end of the day, a forum on change in society does not actually equate to changes of the policy of society themselves. People can talk about it, doesn't mean it actually happens. And we can see that very little change has actually occurred. I can only hope more of these changes are actually implemented. Our societies will need to adapt to the upcoming challenge of a changing industry landscape, which, no matter what anybody tells you, is just a reality. So I want to thank you very much for listening, and I will hand it back to Justin.
Nice.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Well done. Guys, before we get into our open discussion, real quick, let me remind you, in case you haven't heard, this weekend in Dallas, Texas, by the way, if you're out in Dallas right now or anywhere nearby, let me see you in the chat, there is a live event going on. November 4th, November 5th. That's in like 16 hours. That first debate hits the stage. So if you guys are not in the area to attend this particular event live, no problem. If you want to support us, you can just hit like, subscribe, or even better, you can go into the details here in the bottom of the YouTube, and you can donate to the Indiegogo here. You've got the DebateCon 4 thermometer that everyone has been admiring in the chat. We are trying to help James raise funds to support DebateCon 4 and modern day debate in general. So thank you very much for coming and checking out this debate right now. Gentlemen, let's open the floor up to some open discussion. It's all yours.
Cool. I really like that Mark Reid, Atheism, that Mark covered the changes in the tech world and how that's affecting jobs and industry and things like that. I like that. I'm on board with it. I'm not a doomsayer either. I think that there's always opportunities to create value. We live in a very cushy, comfortable life. And I think that's part of the problem, honestly, on some level, because being so comfortable and spoiled, we descend into immorality where we live longer. We have medical advances. We have all of the, at our fingertips, the information available for how to live a healthy life and the means to get decent food and cleanliness and good healthcare and all that stuff.
So
but unfortunately,
medical. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Jump in
how
there.
are medical advances immoral? Like you said, sort of, we've got all these advancements and medical advancements. How is that immoral exactly?
I'm not calling the medical advances immoral. I'm just saying that we living in our spoiled, cushy lives, we're able to subsidize our lives or prop up our lives in ways that are unnatural, immoral, and you can mess up your life through gluttony, through alcohol, through stuff that bringing cancer upon yourself. And now more than ever, I think we have a mental illness problem, and it's partly because we have a spoiled society problem. We have all of these things in our lives where we're living unnatural lives that are unhealthy for us. Whether
I don't think everybody in
drugs.
Well, I don't think everybody in the world is living a spoiled life. I would hardly say, people struggling in Africa, for instance, are living a spoiled life.
I'm not talking about Africa.
Well, yeah, I sort of, but if that is what is important to you, then why aren't you giving up all the things associated with what you see as a spoiled life?
Because that's not the answer. I mean, just because we're living in a spoiled society life doesn't mean I'm not going to give up the comforts of it. I'm just saying that this is one of the temptations and traps and situations in which more people are falling into stuff that's counter to society.
Then a spoiled life isn't immoral. It's something else that's immoral.
Yeah,
because if it was because you're basically saying a spoiled life leads to immorality, but that's not necessarily true, because you're saying
Right.
that you're obviously not saying that you're immoral, right? Or are you immoral?
I'm not taking any. I plead the fifth on that question, man.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we have this. Take the immigration situation, for example. We're many people in America are doing quite comfortably, and they're like, "Yeah, come on in. They can come on in. It doesn't affect me." And so we're the richest country in the world. Why aren't we allowing all these people to come in? But that is not good for those countries, for them to be losing those young people, by and large, young men. And it's not good for us or the people whose communities that they're coming into necessarily. And it's
Well, it depends.
completely.
It
Yeah,
depends.
I know it depends. There's
Like,
situations
for instance,
where it's fine.
you have India, which actually trains a whole bunch of doctors and engineers who are very good. They're very highly trained, and so having good engineers is actually beneficial for the country. And if one country has a surplus of, say, engineers or some kind of profession, it can be good for them to move to another country where, what's the point in having too many engineers in one country and not enough engineers in another? That's kind of pointless.
Right, but that's like a small issue compared to the big issue. We're not getting overrun with engineers.
Well, that's why I said not necessarily.
Right.
That's why I said not
And
necessarily.
I don't dispute that there's exceptions to the rule and big exceptions.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you've kind of laid down a blanket statement, and I'm sort of saying that maybe some structuring around when immigration is appropriate and good, and when, like, sort of to organize how the workforce is flowing. Because what we've seen that actually Naomi Klein, the author I was talking about, brought up, that we see a outsourcing of a lot of jobs from first world nations into third world nations. So
It's a shame.
we've got to, yeah, well, it certainly
on some
is
level,
something that, yeah, no, I agree. I've been made redundant for exactly that reason in my life. But the whole point is that what we need to do is divest funds into upskilling people and moving them to different areas that are becoming available. Like, we talk about things like people on production lines as automation comes through. We've got to be able to train them to do other things like coding the programming for the automation, right? That's where you would take somebody who doesn't have any skills in coding, teach them what they need to know to do the jobs that are available. And that's part of what this sort of, and I want to make it really clear, the Great Reset, it's just a buzzword for this kind of book. It's just a thing that people throw around. We've been doing this for ages, as I sort of pointed out. We've been reskilling and retraining people in different fields as we need them, like since the first industrial revolution.
By we, you mean
nations in general.
People
in general, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that nations have been the ones who've taken the lead in terms of taking the people and doing it. I think it's just been natural. They've naturally seen the opportunities oftentimes.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think that largely corporate structures do it a lot, definitely. But I think that a lot of the time it's sort of from unskilled to unskilled labor, which doesn't need a lot of retraining or reskilling. But we're sort of reaching a point in our technological progress where you can't just sort of be fired as a miner or being made redundant as a miner and then, go into coding, HTML for websites or something. It's just not practical. You've got to have something else happen to get you there. I think it's a real shame that the government isn't providing enough of these resources to get people into the areas they need. So yeah, it's kind of a real shame. But I would like to go into, and something that you sort of said that sort of worried me, is that you said that democracy you had a problem with.
Yeah, big time.
So what structure would you have instead of democracy? What would you be postulating as a good system?
Well, America was originally founded as I believe, a representative republic, where we weren't directly electing our senators. That was the state legislatures were electing the senators. And so they weren't just which is just, kind of an interesting point to, we have the electoral college, we have some structure and checks and balances. And we used to have the men landowners voting for the president and for these different people. And the president didn't used to be as powerful as the presidency supposedly is, at least when the establishment is on the side of the president. Unlike with the last in America with Trump, the establishment was against him and undermining him. But it didn't used to matter so much because the government wasn't so overbearing and micromanaging in people's lives with their different anti-discrimination laws and hate crimes and civil rights and all of the different things that they've done. The Supreme Court with the so-called same-sex marriage, they've just gone crazy.
Let's back up to the first thing, because sort of a republic is still a form of democracy. It's still, like, you may have a problem with the way the democracy is run, but if you're having landowners voting for things, like the original democracy back in Athens, for instance, right, the source of democracy, only sort of citizens could vote and things like that. It was still a democracy, right? So it doesn't seem like you have a problem with democracy as such. It seems like you have a problem with the version of democracy that is currently in, like, because if you want people voting and not something like the power being derived from another source, or the mandate for the government being derived from another source, then what you're talking about is democracy. But democracy without it sounds like you have a problem with universal suffrage, not with democracy.
Definitely, because that's what democracy means to me, is like mob rule, where you have all of the useful idiots who are propagandized to support the destruction of their own country, or whatever country that they're in, are ruling over the people who know better.
Yeah, but then you're just changing it to the useful idiots that happen to own land. That's the thing. Like, you're not actually changing much of the dynamic at all. And so this whole idea of, well, the government sort of got overreach, I think that we've sort of moved into a place where the government has to regulate certain things. It has to. You can't have the sort of runaway sort of Wall Street and the housing bubble collapse without tons of people being disenfranchised by that.
Well, that was part of the government meddling, was part of the problem. The government was giving away subprime loans because Bill Clinton said, the former president said, that every Black family should own a home, and they wanted to just give away and meddle and impose on banks. And it was an example of commie capitalism. And I'll take the useful idiot landowners over the useful idiot just masses who don't own anything and don't care anything except for about themselves.
Well, the problem with that is we're all kind of equal stakeholders, if you know what that means. We're stakeholders in how our nations come out. That even somebody at the lowest rung of society still has a stake in how the nation is run. And I don't see that sort of disenfranchising people has any sort of, benefit to society. It just means that the people with land will change things so they benefit to the detriment of people below them.
Not necessarily.
But one thing I wanted to touch on was that you said that sort of you had a problem with equal rights and things like that, and the civil rights movement.
Right.
So do you think we should return to Jim Crow laws and sort of segregation and things like that?
I wouldn't be against localities wanting to impose segregation if that's what those local places want, the people of those local towns want to do. I wouldn't be against. I don't know what Jim Crow all entails, but if they want to say, oh, we want our community to be this way, no outsiders other than what we define, that's their purview. It's a big country, and people, the Blacks were doing better really with the segregation than they are today.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's
in
true.
many ways it is.
Yeah, I don't think that's true at all. Well, Hake,
the destruction of the family, you cannot argue with the destruction of the family and the destruction of the morality and the anger of the Black community. No, you
not.
can't.
Well, we'll
The black
get
community
to.
did not have the violent crime problem that it does today, and that it did post so-called civil rights that it had prior to the so-called civil rights movement.
Well, there was crime happening in black communities, but
Not to that
generally
level, not nearly to that level.
Generally, it was sort of legalized crime against black people. Essentially, there was a lot of lynchings and things like that going on.
Not compared to the murders today. Not even close, man.
Well, that's sort of a, that's sort of trying to compare apples to oranges.
Exactly. You're bringing up one wrong that you've heard about to try to dismiss the evil that is befalling the black community today.
Well, I've got a question. What if we decide that people who are gingers are now the ones to be segregated, and very little laws apply to them, they can't vote? Would you be okay with that if that was legislated in your area?
That's already effectively the case. The white vote, if you will, has been so watered down by the unfettered immigration and it's partly our fault for, the whites not making babies, but it's also like our demographics were changed against the will of the people. So we've been effectively disenfranchised, if you will, in our own country.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. And why would I care about, like, you mentioned this before, you sort of said that Christians are being sort of persecuted, and this persecution complex that you're being disenfranchised. I think that
I did not say persecution or disenfranchisement of Christians.
Well,
I said that Christendom is on decline.
Well, just a sec. I use the word persecution complex because really that's what I see it as. You're sort of going, well, poor me, I'm being victimized. Wasn't my message at all, but go ahead. Well, I mean, you brought up, I can't exactly remember exactly what you said. I would have to.
I said Christendom is very weak and it's ripe for the subversion and replacement by the liberalism religion.
Why would I don't get why I would really care about, like, I care about your opinion, right? Like, your opinion just has as much weight as anybody else's, but I don't get why I should care about your opinion over anybody else's. And this comes back to your sort of idea of morality. Like, why should your opinion count more than the black person down the street, that you sort of are saying, well, hey, it's fine if we, that person gets segregated and things like that?
Many of the blacks think that segregation was better for them. They did not like this integration thing. Many of the clear thinking older black people knew that this civil rights thing was a scam and just subversive communist young people anger stuff.
Okay, well, I don't think that's the majority opinion. In fact, I think that's the
majority is always
minority.
wrong.
The majority is always wrong.
That's why
if the majority
that's why democracy is evil.
Just a second. So if the majority says, hey, don't eat paint chips, leaded paint chips, that is wrong.
No, of course not. But they are.
Well, there you go.
But that's not. But that's sort of a caricature. You're not attempting to understand the point.
No. What I'm saying is that you're trying to make this logical inference that majority is always wrong. That's a definitive statement to say that the majority is always necessarily incorrect. And I'm saying that just because the majority is saying it doesn't necessarily make it incorrect. There's other things we've got to take into consideration. You brought up that, there's black people that think that the segregation, Jim Crow law, the lynchings, they're in a better position. And what I'm telling you is that nearly everybody disagrees with that. So you can't appeal to a few anecdotes from some people and then say, hey, that's the way that all of them felt. There was a reason why there was
I don't care about
marches.
how all of them felt.
But the reality is
it's worse off today.
You're appealing to how they felt. You're appealing to, the older people felt that it was better. You're appealing
they
to
saw that it was better.
They saw, well, I mean, there's a ton of people that saw that it was worse.
No, they imagined that it was worse. They got into their
the old
phony
people
idea of
imagined
equality.
it was better.
Right.
No, that old people imagined it was better. Did see? This is the thing. You're basically saying, hey, people have conflicting opinions. I'm going to say that the people that I agree with knew, and that all the other, the vast, overwhelming majority of the other people are just imagined. Like there is no way you can actually sort of justify that. All you can say is, hey, I'm going to say that the people I agree with knew, and the people that I don't agree with imagined it all.
Because
You're just projecting.
You're sort of living in the theoretical where you're like overstating the number of lynchings and all that stuff as though the street justice thing was the norm when it was majorly on decline, or naturally, just because there were wrong things that were happening back then. There's much more evil happening today that the blacks are brainwashed to support their own self-destruction. And so I'm just saying that you're kind of downplaying the evils of today and overstating the evils of back then.
Oh, I'm not saying that today's society doesn't have problems, but it is markedly better by any metric you can care to name. Happiness index, healthiness, length of life, any metric you can care to name. And it brings us back to this whole point of morality.
But that's a false appeal to saying civil rights brought us to this point. No,
I never said it did.
Right.
I never said it did.
So it's an irrelevant, moot point to say, oh, we're better off today by every metric, but it's not every metric, because if you look at family life, you look at the mental illness issue, you look at the crime, you look at the bad attitudes and the division in the country, it's not better on those metrics, if you will.
Well, what you're talking about is the nuclear family, because more and more today we have found families, people that sort of gather together and take care of each other, sort of very, very close bonded friend groups. We see a lot of this, especially in other nations that are more collectivist than they are individualist. It's just in America where you're very, very, if you don't mind me saying, you're very individualist, like I look out for myself and nobody else. In other countries like Australia, we're more collectivist, where we have a bunch of mates and we all look after one another. So found families, they sort of have taken over that role. And with mental illness has been around for ages. And the thing is that we're only beginning to understand how to diagnose it. So the fact that we're finding more mental illness is simply due to the fact that we didn't understand what was mental illness before.
No,
a lot of the things that hang on, let me finish. A lot of the things that people thought were mental illness, like back in the day, they were, characterized as being possessed or having some sort of problem, Uncle Jim's got a conniptions or whatever, like these terms that we're only beginning to understand it. So I don't really believe that mental illness, I think it's because it was undiagnosed that it really wasn't addressed. It wasn't really because it wasn't there.
Well, mental illness is definitely encouraged and promoted and spread today.
How is it encouraged?
Well, suicide and all that stuff, planting evil ideas in people's heads, giving them drugs and embracing different perverse ways of living. So
that's wrong.
Yeah,
that's wrong, because they're not destigmatizing suicide or mental illness, right? They're destigmatizing the people that suffer from it. And this is an important distinction that you've missed, that we can't blame people for mental illness as such. There are circumstances which are beyond people's control, and we understand this. If someone was abused as a child and sort of came out with a depression, you can't blame that person, but nobody is saying that the mental illness is good.
No, you're wrong about that, man. I get what you're saying, that you don't want to blame the child for the failure of the parents and the mess that they've inherited and developed in life.
Yeah,
I totally get that. I'm on board with you on that. But you're missing the fact that we have kind of like the mass shooter copycat crime thing, where people are romanticizing and taking an ego identifying with their depression, and it's become a badge of honor in many cases. If you look at these people, how they post on social media, many of them live on social media. It is a it is an identity that they've embraced in unhealthy ways from this destigmatization. It may have been well intended, like how you described, but the effect has been to spread the issue and not to solve it.
Yeah, I don't think you sort of, I don't think that you're sort of, that any psychologist or psychiatrist or any of the people who actually study this kind of stuff would agree with you. And I don't know why I would sort of take an opinion over the people that study it for a living. And I want to come back to
How do you
why
figure?
I should.
Wait, how do you know that
Yeah.
that none of them would agree with me?
What do you mean?
You said the psychologists, this appeal to this expertise, these psychologists would not agree with you, and these people study it for a living. I mean,
Yeah,
they make a living off people being sick in the head, so that's one thing. And these people are brainwashed liberals themselves. It doesn't mean it's common sense that people are. Have you looked at these people? How they
it would be
wear
very
it as a
easy
badge?
for me. It would be very easy for me to say that you make money off what you say, and sort of put it back onto you and say that you're sort of a brainwashed conservative that's been brainwashed by the system. So how do we then sort of determine why you're right in this matter? Why should I listen to you over anybody else?
Just if it makes sense to you, then you see that I'm telling the truth. If you see for yourself that what I'm saying is true, and there are, this guy who came out with the mass delusion, I forget what it was, but mass psychosis with this overreaction to the virus, this fear and stress that people underwent with the hype over the virus. It was destructive to people's minds. Same thing with this bullying, propaganda, and all that. Go ahead.
You mentioned mass shootings, but that is a sort of almost uniquely American phenomenon. So
not true.
Really? You think so?
Really. I know so.
How many mass shootings do you think Australia had in the last year?
The island? Probably none. I'm not sure.
Well, technically it's an island, but it's more a country, sure.
Yeah.
Zero. The answer is zero.
And?
Well, I mean, it's had zero.
It's not the only
mass
other country
for a long time.
Because you have zero guns, effectively. You guys gave up your manhood and your freedom and independence for
very few
notion of safety.
Like that. Well, I mean, I don't have to worry
not to be offensive.
No, that's fine. So there was sort of in 2023. There was like 565 mass shootings in America, and in most countries there have been zero. So it is a uniquely American phenomenon.
Most is not unique. Most means no. You said unique. Unique means it's the only one, but it's not.
Yeah. It's unique as in it's the only one with that amount, right? It's a substantial amount beyond anywhere else seen in the world.
It's a huge country with a whole lot of guns, demographics who've been encouraged to be angry and encouraged to self-destruct and not have decent families and morals.
So again, we get onto morals. What would you consider your foundation for morality?
I would say Christianity.
Okay, so why would I care about what you say is moral if I'm an atheist? Like, why would I care?
Because it works. You live in a leftover Christian country, and you enjoy the benefits of it.
No, actually, it is a secular country where I live. Christians
you
only
can call it secular, but it's leftover.
Just 1 second.
Go ahead.
Just 1 second. Christians account for something like 46 to 48% of the population. Atheists and no religion is basically about 42.
What were they 100 years ago?
It doesn't really matter.
It does, because that's the country,
Why?
That's the society that you're benefiting from.
What do you mean it's the society that I'm benefiting from?
You're living in a country built by Christians.
A country built by Christians.
Built and set up by Christians, I would imagine.
what does that matter? Like, if you're sort of saying in history there's been a lot of Christians in the West, I would agree with you.
Who
I don't
built
know
it.
why.
Yeah, who built this country that you're benefiting from and you're taking for granted.
Well, a lot of different people built this country. I mean,
I'm not
sure
denying
what
that.
you're. I'm not sure why, if sort of people build something like
If you can say most of the world doesn't have mass.
Let me finish. Let me
All right.
finish. So if your TV is made in China, does that mean you're not allowed to use it because they're not Christian?
No, that's silly.
Yeah, that's silly. You're right. That is silly. Yes. It
So
doesn't matter where
what's
the
your point?
origin of something is. My point is that
But that's
we
not
all
the
have
origin. The
differing
origin of
opinions.
but the
We
origin
all
of the
have
technology doesn't come from China.
what?
Right?
Some of it does. What are you talking
Maybe.
about? Yeah.
What's your point?
It like technology is a global effort. Like, lots of different advances are made by all kinds of different places. I don't know why the origin of something's religion has to have an effect on what I have to adhere to as a moral system when, like, for instance, if in Japan, for instance, I mean, that country you could say was built by the Shinto religion and the emperor kind of thing. If you're sort of saying, hey, but everybody that doesn't believe in the emperor now, they still have to do that, that's
No,
ludicrous.
I'm not saying you have
that's
to.
silly.
I never said you had to be Christian, but to deny that a Christian foundation was part of Western civilization is ridiculous.
Well, no, that was colonialism. They basically came in and forced their religion on everybody else throughout the world, like with the conquistadors that came from Spain. There was the influx of settlers from England. There was the influx of settlers to Australia who brought convicts with them, who largely it was the convict people and the settlers that built the nation. How much of them are Christian? Probably 80% or so. But you can't just say that, oh, because they were Christian, you have to abide by Christian morality now.
No,
That's
I'm just saying
ludicrous.
that's what's benefited society by and large. What's made higher trust societies where men lead and lead with logic rather than this woman mindset of liberalism.
No, what's benefited society has been technology. Nearly every single improvement in society. No, it doesn't just help. Like, every single medicine ever made has been a result of technology and science. Science has been responsible for why we're even able to talk across the entire world. I mean, think about that. I'm across the Pacific from you. Like, the amount of distance we're communicating in is incredible.
Awesome.
The internet's incredible. The way that it operates over multiple countries, distributing data all over the place. Most of the improvements in our lives have.
Christian Al Gore built the internet, and Christian people were the ones who were inventing these things.
What are you talking
about? Well, Al Gore said that he invented the internet, so making a joke.
Al Gore did not invent the internet.
But the point is, these Christians were the ones who were into the sciences.
Well, a lot of people are. That's the thing.
Right?
Like, really, modern science really started with the Enlightenment, which wasn't Christian. It was more deists, and there were some atheists involved in it, but that sort of questioning of, well, we're not going to accept God as the answer to why things work. Like, we've got to find a natural explanation, was the start of the modern scientific process. So you can't claim science just because there was a lot of Christians around when Christianity as a religion propagated itself, a lot of the times through violence, through inquisitions and sort of heresies, where they wiped out a whole bunch of people who didn't believe the same thing as them.
But you're getting away from your premise that technology builds great society, and that's not entirely. That's not the sole truth, man. Because you can have all the technology in the world, if you have illogical people running society, they're going to run it into the ground in many different ways with injustice.
How? What ways?
Because, well, look at what we have today, where we have insane society running with messed up immigration, messed up economy. We have major division in the country, in our country anyway, in America. I don't know what it is like over there for you,
Yeah, it's
but
not too bad.
it's pretty ridiculous over here. So
Yeah, well, I
so
mean,
technology is not going to solve those issues.
yeah, but that's
Unless it's
not
technology in the hands of capable men who know what to do with it.
well, that's not sort of aside the point. You're sort of talking about sort of political things and problems in society, but it's way better than sort of dying of polio, when you're 5 years old, and the
Sure.
incredible, say, childbirth death rates, and the incredible way that people wouldn't live, like that a lot of people died before they hit 30 because of teeth, or just this is the thing. You're sort of saying, hey, we've got problems now. Well, yeah, obviously, but they're nothing like the problems in the past.
Yeah,
They're
I'm not
nothing
denying
like,
that.
hey, you break your leg and you're doomed to die because we just don't have the technology to splint it and make a cast, kind of thing. It's nothing like living your life in pain because painkillers weren't invented. So, you have a bad tooth and you just have to live in pain. It's nothing like that. And
Right.
I would put it to you, if those days were so great, then why don't you go back to them and live like a Mennonite or Amish, or people that basically reject technology, if it was so great?
Because that's not the source of why it's gone so evil. We had men running the show, largely Christian men who thought clearly. It wasn't this mama spirit catering to women and catering to this
I don't know
anti-racism
what that
stuff.
means.
Mama spirit is where it's where you feel sorry for these victim class people. You meddle in the affairs of others. You see these viral videos and you take sides, one versus the other. It's,
like the Christians with persecution complexes, those victims.
Maybe. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
Christians have, like I said.
So you're part of the victim class then?
No, I'm not talking about that. What do you mean?
Well, you sort of sit there and go, well, Christians are under attack. They're sort of they're being marginalized. That was the word that you used, marginalized, and things.
I don't
like
think I used that word either, man.
Maybe.
I mean,
I can't remember. I mean, I didn't take the conversation.
No, I totally might have. But they, man, you interrupted. You kind of latched on to a side point or something. Oh,
well, I don't. The whole thing of the victim class, I don't think is a thing. I think that
you don't think that people feel like victims today? What do you mean by you don't think the victim class is a real thing?
Yeah,
I think everybody wants to be a victim today.
Well, I don't think that's the case. I don't think everybody wants to feel like victims, kind of thing. I don't think so.
Okay, well, many people are way into their emotions, and many people are in like a victim Olympics type of thing. It's a huge phenomenon among both the left and the right today, among blacks, whites, women, men, the LGBT. It's out of control.
Sure, but we have techniques of cutting through those emotions, which is why we use statistical data analysis. So when we use these sort of scientific methods to analyze what is real and what isn't, statistics and quantification of data cuts right through emotion. There's no emotion involved. All you do is do analysis on the numbers.
But analysis isn't going to... What's your point with this analysis stuff?
Well, my point is that there are people that are disadvantaged in our society, that they do have less of a chance. For instance, if you analyze the amount of people coming up, say the millennials and Zoomers kind of thing, as they're called, they have almost, there's very little chance of them ever owning a home due to inflation and the way that the thing is structured. So that cuts through emotion. So when a millennial says, hey, well, I'm angry because I can't get a house, they may be talking emotionally, but we do have the data to back up that is actually a serious problem.
I know,
it's not an emotional response.
Right. But just like the old song says, in this life, you will have trouble, but when you worry, you make it double. And that's what my point is about the emotion. This data confirming or denying your victimhood isn't going to take away your emotions. The emotions are part of the problem.
As much as I hate to disagree with a song said, really, like you're sort of saying, hey, these people shouldn't worry about it, but aren't you worried about, like, sort of, you're going through this thing of, oh, well, I'm worried about Christians and how Christians are being treated and how Christians are no longer, what did you say, they're weakened, kind of thing.
If
My
I'm
whole
worried,
point
if
is,
I'm worried, that's an issue I got to overcome. Nobody should be worrying.
well, then
That's
why are
part
you
of my
coming
point.
out to talk about it? Like, why don't you just not worry about it?
I'm not worried about it. But
Well, it sounds like you are. I mean, then why are you talking about it?
You're making an assumption that I'm worried about it just because I'm talking about it.
So you're not worried about Christians being weakened?
No, that's
No,
their
you're
problem.
not.
No,
It's
that's
their problem.
It's
Cool.
their
I mean,
problem,
I
and
think
it's
we're
to
on
the
the same
detriment
page.
of to the detriment of everybody, of themselves and everybody around them.
I don't think that's the case.
Could-
What I
my point-
see
my point of-
is well, just what I see is sort of, we've got this emergent technology. We have the environment to worry about. We've got all these problems. Now, as an atheist, I'm basically looking at a planet that could be in danger and could be in trouble. There are all kinds of things. There's asteroids whizzing past us. We're surrounded by the most hostile environment you could ever imagine. Now, I don't think there's anyone coming to save us. I don't think this is going to happen, right? So we've got to look at how we can implement technology, how we can implement societies, and how we can implement anything to make the best possible outcome for everybody. And I don't see why you should have any kind of say in, sort of being special in some way. So, like, you're welcome to your beliefs. You're welcome to that. But it's sort of like, the way I see it is that, if you want to have an imaginary friend, you're welcome to it. But you go and play with that imaginary friend. Don't involve me in this game. I'm not part of it.
In what way have I tried to involve you, or are you talking to me? Are you just talking to Christians?
Yeah. So, well, any Christian kind of thing, when they sort of say, "Hey, we want to do this, and this is wrong because of our religion," it's kind of like, well, you've got to do better than that. You've got to show how it is detrimental to humans. And unfortunately, what I seem to hear is a lot of, like you said, a lot of emotional responses about how, Christians did this and Christians did that, and not much data to support that society would be better if Christians or landowners or these people would be in charge.
And I say to you, you can have your little liberal religion, girly liberal religion, but don't try to impose that on the rest of the world. But you're going to try it anyway, because
it's not a religion.
That's the evil. Yes, it's totally a false religion. It doesn't even make any sense.
It's not.
Equality and all that stuff. What's that?
Who do we worship? There's got
Satan.
to be a object of worship. Well, I don't believe in Satan. How can I? But
you believe in your Satan? Imagination, and you believe in justifying
What are you
people's.
Talking about?
You believe in justifying people's emotions of victimhood.
No, look, James. My imagination is not real. I don't believe in my imagination. I mean, I have an imagination, but the things I think up aren't real, mate. Like, I don't know why I have to explain this.
Like, you imagine that the civil rights movement was better for blacks when they're clearly worse off today as a result of the civil rights movement. You're in your imagination about what you were told about.
I don't think that's true.
Back then.
Right.
Exactly. You're listening to thoughts and propaganda. This false religion of the communist civil rights movement.
It's not a religion. It's not a religion, mate. It doesn't have it. No, it's not. Like, there is no standard of definition you'll find where the normative usage for a liberalism is a religion. Like, there's no object of worship. There is no tenets of faith. There is none of the things that would categorize it as a religion. Now, you might say it's a political ideology. Sure. Absolutely, it's a political ideology. Absolutely. But it's not a religion.
It's all about emotions. It's all about this false notion of equality that Satan presented to Eve, that she could be equal with God, equal with the man. It's a fake idea. It's a false religion.
Yeah, as I said,
what we do is 2 seconds here, gentlemen, to pop in real quick. This is excellent so far, by the way. In about 10 minutes, we're already going to be getting into those super chats. I just wanted to remind our audience to get those super chats in. Of course, it's first come, first serve, and we'll get through as many of them as we can, if not all of them. Forgive my interruption, fellas. Carry on.
No worries. So what we do generally is we use science and statistics to cut through emotion. We're trying to eliminate emotion from our decisions of the world. That's what part of technology is about. Like, we're using science to say, hey, is this good for the world? Will this be beneficial? To me, what it sounds like is you have an emotional connection to this religion that you have. And you're basically saying, hey, because I believe in that thing, I want to make sure that gets applied over everybody. What I'm saying is that your opinion is important, but no more important than anybody else's. And in order to show that you have a better society in mind, you've got to demonstrate that, not just claim it, because all you do is just say that is the case. Where are the studies to show it? Where are the statistical analysis to show that that is in fact the case? Because I can point to all kinds of metrics that show that we are living in the best time out of any point in history.
But if you wanted to get rid of the emotions from the political decision making, you would want to eliminate the emotions from politics, and that is the liberal religion, is pushing emotions on victim people and making them fight each other, which has increased crime. It's destroyed the family, and it's pushed a bunch of propaganda and fear and climate anxiety and COVID anxiety and all that stuff. It's been very destructive to society. And you pretend that we're doing so much better, but the competence and the sense of responsibility and the standards of the people today is on major decline. You see it in airlines, and you see it in the quality of service that you get. And as you pointed out yourself, the value of the money that we have. We've cheapened money through liberal policies.
Yeah, so when you say sort of emotion, right, you're basically saying, hey, if somebody is emotional about something, they can't be right about it, which is illogical, it's irrational. They might be emotional about it and completely correct for other reasons. Like I said, somebody could be correct about how they've been disenfranchised objectively, like sort of as a statistical or a analytical purpose, but still be emotional about it. So your sort of claim is, if you're emotional about something, then you can't be right, isn't true. As I said, I keep saying we use science and statistical data analysis to eliminate emotion so we can rely on it. That's what all these reports going to the government is about. They use societal analysis and sociology to study what the impacts of these things will be. The fact that we have problems today doesn't, you're basically asking, basically saying, unless you have eliminated every single problem in the world, then we have it worse than before. What you're doing is you're romanticizing the past. You're saying, oh, it was so much better back in the day, and ignoring all of the problems that occurred back in those days when we were sort of, there was a lot of spousal abuse, right?
Oh, come on.
Like, there was a ton of spousal abuse.
Not compared to today.
If you don't remember, in fact, the honeymooners, the guy was like, pow, Alice, straight to the moon. It was normative to smack your wife around and sort of beat your kids, sometimes to huge detrimental effects. And we know that that's not good for people now. And we know this through studying the effects of this it has upon adults. So you're romanticizing the past as this amazing thing, without actually understanding how bad it was back then and how far we've come since then. And partly that's due to technology, partly medicine, partly a better understanding of human neurology and human psychology. But all in all, like, if you study it without emotion, without romanticizing like you are, if you study the actual metrics, this is the best society we've managed to organize so far.
What we're talking about is this so-called Great Reset, and
Yes.
we're talking about this liberal swing against society that is
it's got nothing to do with
taken place
liberalism.
over the last 70 or 100, 200 years.
Look, the Great Reset had nothing to do with liberalism, and that brings up a good point I want to mention, this own nothing and be happy.
Yes.
That is actually, so that is actually a misquote. That was not the World Economic Forum. That was basically a Dutch politician, Ida Auken, submitted an essay to the World Economic Forum that basically made the put forward the proposal that people rent things rather than owning them. And they put forward this essay as a talking point to get people talking about this issue. It was never endorsed by the World Economic Forum. It's not part of the Great Reset. It's been appropriated by all kinds of sources to misuse it, to characterize it as that. In fact, the agenda of the 2030 World Economic Forum, the the forum basically will be home ownership in the future. So the idea that the World Economic Forum is not after ownership is just an outright lie. And I'm sorry that you've sort of fallen for it, but it is an outright lie.
Did they not tweet it out, bragging about it? They did not tweet that out?
No.
You sure?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
If they tweeted it out, it would be to draw attention to the essay. So you've got to understand what a forum is, okay? It's basically all of these figures coming together, economists, politicians coming together and basically talking about stuff. That doesn't mean that the overall goal of the forum is to endorse any of these opinions. And some things are brought up as a what if? What if we do this? What will be the outcomes? What will be the ramifications? How will this play out? Will it be a benefit to humanity? Will it not be a benefit? And the essay that you're talking about, it was never endorsed. So we didn't say, hey, we're endorsing this as a good idea. It was just brought forward as what would happen. Can we talk about what would happen if we owned nothing and instead rented everything instead? I don't support it. The World Economic Forum doesn't support it. No country really supports it. And the World Economic Forum is still talking about ownership going forward into the future. So I don't know what you're talking about with this quote because it's been misappropriated.
You can claim that, but the direction of society in America, like you said, with the Zoomers and millennials through liberalism has been, they won't be able to even afford a home because they've cheapened the money and done all these things and put in a minimum wage and brought in the unfettered immigration and just kind of set it up, manipulated society so that
well, that's
so
not
that people
strict
don't.
Liberalism.
Yes, it is.
No, it's strict capitalism.
Minimum wage is not liberalism.
Yeah, and giving people minimum wage, that will help them own a home, not hinder. How
No,
can
it
getting
won't.
more money in your pocket?
Yeah, you're cheapening money. You're artificially you're jacking up artificially the cost of living.
No.
Yes.
Hey, it's only cheapening money. Well, let me finish. It's only cheapening money if you're inflating the currency, i.e. you're creating more. No, it isn't, because if you actually divert the funds from people that have the money, you're not creating more money. You're just reallocating it. So if you increase taxes on the rich and give a minimum wage, then you're not increasing the money. Or you stop propping up the fossil fuel industry, you're not creating more money and it doesn't inflate the currency. You're just moving that money from one place to another. The inflation does not change.
No, it's cheapening money for sure, because, and you're also pricing. Listen. You're acting like this is worth this amount, but it's not actually worth that amount. And you're also pricing out opportunities and stuff. It's imposing. It's micromanaging, meddling.
So do you understand that cheapening money is inflation? Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Do you understand that inflation is where you create more of the money, so the money that already exists is devalued?
Right. Which is another tenet of liberalism.
Do you understand that if you tax one area and then put that money somewhere else, that is not creating new money?
Right.
Right.
But you're artificially propping up or falsely valuing the worth of this whole class of jobs and pricing out all of the potential jobs and freedom of people to contract with one another to get paid $1 an hour, $0.01 an hour, free, whatever. You are messing with the economy in a destructive way, and it's definitely cheapening the value of that money, because it's not worth that much. You're enabling.
I don't see
basically
how.
enabling.
Yeah, you haven't
You're
you haven't
enabling
actually explained
inflation.
how. You
You're
haven't
ena-
actually explained how. Because when you basically are moving money instead of creating it. So usually what happens is the Fed will issue more money to the banks, and then they will loan it to somebody else, and then they will keep a certain percentage and then loan that to somebody else. So that's basically how inflation is created. But when you're the government and you're not creating any more money, you're just increasing taxes on certain people.
You mean printing?
And well, I mean, technically, I mean, it's digital.
It's not
currency,
creating
but,
more money; it's printing it, cheapening the
well,
money.
sure.
But that's another way of cheapening money for sure. But
Well,
so is
sure.
minimum wage. You're cheapening the value of a $7, or acknowledging the cheapness of the $7 bill, or the $7 an hour
well,
job.
just say you require people to have $15 an hour, and I don't know how 1 cent an hour, like you described, helps somebody own a house. But let's not talk about
because
that.
it's because you're not supposed to get a house at minimum wage. There is no there. We shouldn't even have a minimum wage. We should have freedom, and but no, you guys want to.
Why can't you
play
have
mama.
a house at minimum wage? If you want to save up and get a house, why aren't you supposed to have a house?
I'm just saying that you're expecting to live. You're expecting to own a house at minimum wage, which is insane.
Why?
Why? Because it's not
Why?
reality. You guys don't live in reality.
What do you mean? I like, this is the thing. Like, the only thing stopping these people from actually putting aside money and saving up, doing side gigs, saving up for a deposit, and then once they get a deposit, they can pay off a mortgage. The only thing stopping them is that they can't accrue money because they're living sort of hand to mouth. They're living day to day kind of thing, paycheck to paycheck. There's no reason apart from the companies that earn, extravagant profits don't want to give up those profits to pay a minimum wage to their workers. That's the only thing stopping it.
No, this is commie capitalism, man. What you're
How's it
talking
communist?
about?
It's just capitalism. How's
No,
it
it's
communist?
commie capitalism. The government and these huge businesses that can afford this stuff, working together, and then normal people can't just start businesses willy-nilly and make a life for themselves. You have to depend on these huge oligarch corporations that can afford all of this minimum wage stuff and these endless regulations and being in bed with the government. It's ridiculous, man.
All right, guys.
I
have a mile-long list of super chats.
Excellent.
We didn't plan for kind of a closing statement, but would you guys each like a couple minutes to try to put a point on your arguments? Because we went all over the place with this one. We hit religion, financing, so many things. What do you think?
Yeah, that
Hake?
sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
Okay, well, Hake, you started us off, so why don't you start us off with a quick closing?
All right. Well, this has been fun, Mark Reid. I look forward to doing these super chats and things. I appreciate you, Mark Reid, Atheism, and shout out to Modern Day Debate. I want to point out that this Mark Reid brought in the climate crisis, the looming climate crisis. The type of people who are for this great reset and build back better stuff have been talking about, and these self-important scientists who want to stay relevant and stay paid and get their funding and get in the media, they want a climate shutdown. And their solutions, their supposed solutions to the climate crisis that they talk about, are basically globalist socialism, redistribution of America's wealth, mess even further with the freedom of businesses to do business and own what they own, and work freely so that people at the so-called bottom can make it on their own without dependency and meddling by do-gooder fake government and these liberals. He brought up cleaner environment is always better, smog-free cities, cleaner air, waste on the beaches. We have a immigration problem, and we have a low class, low quality mindset people problem who are littering, who are contributing to all those issues. Whereas the climate crisis is about, global warming or global cooling, more extreme weather events and all that stuff. So it wasn't, I don't know if he was totally honest there, or at least he wasn't presenting what the climate crisis propaganda is really about. And so that's part of that build back better stuff. They want to claim a crisis or stoke a crisis of their own creation and swoop in with their false solutions. So I say, don't fall for it, people. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, Hake. Mike or Mark, forgive me.
I'll be Mike. That's fine. I like it.
It's the Hake Mark is just triggering dyslexia all over the place.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, go ahead, take a few moments, and then we'll get into some super chats.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Yeah, big shout out to MTD, and thank you for James Hake participating and being a great interlocutor. I really enjoyed this debate. So what do we do in the future? And what I want people to understand here is that the Great Reset is just a buzzword for how we're going to organize things in the future. It doesn't cover half of what James was talking about. It doesn't cover all of these sort of leftist things. It just covers the adaptation of industry to new emerging technologies, environmentalism, and thirdly, it covers redistribution of wealth and how we sort of make things fairer. Now, the catch cry is, well, the poor should stay poor, and I get that that's what Hake's essentially saying, that the poor should stay poor, they should know their place. And unfortunately, it's very hard to sort of get this across and sort of explain this to a lot of the Christians, a lot of the Christian men. You're not special anymore. There was a place where, Christians had the power and they were considered to be the most representative of everybody. That day is over. Your time is done. We're now looking at the science and looking what's best for people in general, not a certain, basically having some group have superiority and have all of the benefits while others toil away in poverty. That's not what we're after anymore. And you may not like it because you're not sort of at the top of the heap anymore. And sorry, don't care. Your beliefs and views don't get to downtrod other people anymore. That is not what's happening. So you may have liked the time when you had power, and that time is ending. And you're not special anymore. Your opinion is it's worth just as much as anybody else's, but there's no reason to believe sort of a Christian's opinions over an atheist. What we should do is look at the factual data of science instead of falling prey to nostalgia and these feelings that people want to repudiate, and use statistics and objective methods to find out what is best for people and what isn't best for people. I mean, you wouldn't take a ride on a jet that's just been created with emotion. No, what you'd want is somebody being empirical about it, objective about it, test it first. So I don't see why we're not doing that with our societies, apart from there is a group of people who are used to being the special people that don't want to be not the special people anymore. And they have a persecution complex. They think that because they're not special anymore in society, that they're being persecuted, and that's not the case. We're just stopping them from persecuting others and succeeding on the backs of those less fortunate. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, guys, we're going to get into our super chats here in a moment. Thank you so much for your support tonight. The list of super chats is, I've got about 6 pages here. So we got some work to do still. Yeah. But before we get into those super chats, let's talk about something real quick. This is a very important debate that we're having today. Not necessarily just because Mark and Hake joined us on what turned out to be a very fascinating topic. But it's DebateCon 4. It's finally here. If you don't already have your tickets, I'm guessing you're just not in the neighborhood. Maybe you want to make a last minute decision. You're like, you know what? Screw it. We're going on a road trip. I don't know. But in Dallas tomorrow at, well, I want to say 1 p.m., but that's just my time. But the timer is on the screen in about a little over 15 hours. Leo and Gets It Wits It are taking the stage live to debate. Get this, not flat Earth. Normally, Gets It Wits It debates flat Earth, but this time we've got creationism debate. Should be very exciting. So all of these debates should be here for you guys to check out live on the channel. Today we hit 137,000 subscribers. James modded just 2 days ago at 135. So the channel is busting up. It's great. We were hoping for 140 by 2024. At this pace, we are going to crush that. So I want to thank all of you guys for watching with us, hanging out with us. It's been fantastic. Yeah, with that, I think that's pretty much about all the housekeeping we could expect, other than like, subscribe, share, donate, and keep debating, guys. So let's scroll this massive list to the top and start. First super chat comes in from Dr. Dino, $5. Change is a necessary part of life. Should it be embraced or resisted? Why not take the chance to make things better for you, for your fellow humans? Odd.
It sounds like he's addressing me because I'm opposed to this build back better thing, perhaps. Not sure if that's what he means.
I think he's addressing you, yeah.
Yeah, it's the way that these people are not the ones to trust to do things better. I'll try to make things better in my little world, and you yours, and stay out of my life, Sleepy Joe Biden and World Economic Forum and liberals. Well, I don't know. You can't really get the liberals out of your life. I can deal with them though.
Okay, we'll just go right to the next one. Sleep is the cousin of death, sends $1.99. We live in a constitutional republic, not a democracy.
Based.
Not sure who the we are.
Probably to me, yeah. Yeah, it is a form of democracy. That's the thing. Like, the republic is kind of like a democracy, yes.
Okay.
But it's not mob rule, as we covered.
So anomic.
No, it's representative. It's representative.
Yep.
Anomic $4.99. Mark, you said a cleaner environment is always better. Can you elaborate? Do you feel there are no trade-offs in environmental policy? Love you, Hake.
Thank you.
No, of course there's trade-offs. It's just with the amount that sort of plastics are piling up, and they're going to stay there forever, or incredible amount of time, and sort of pollution in, say, LA, for instance. The smog and the Clean Air Act helped so much with the smog problem. This causes breathing issues, and yes, there's always a trade-off, and always you have to look at the effect on industry versus the benefit. But we have to take into consideration that the people to tell us the effects on our planet are the people that study it, not the fossil fuel companies that have a vested interest in sort of doing these technologies. For instance, something like lead petrol. I don't know if you remember that. Petrol used to have lead in it, and that was dispersed into the air through cars. And, lead is really bad and poisonous. The guy that owned the company would swear that lead was safe, and sort of like do demonstrations where he put his hands in sort of lead, sort of this lead petrol. He actually, got lead poisoning, and it's terribly bad for you. I don't think the people who are profiting off making these things are the people to trust in whether they are good or bad for us.
But neither is the government. I think under the Obama administration, they were making 80 new pages of regulations per day. These weren't regulations that were reasonable necessarily. These aren't people that you necessarily want to trust either in terms of what's best for the society or the world.
Well, I don't know about that. That seems like a really unrealistic number. I think you could do substantive policy change without 80 regulations a day, but that does sound like that's something's just been made up.
I may have the numbers wrong, but it was out of control. And that's why Trump getting rid of regulations throughout his presidency was really helping to bring back jobs and business and a thriving economy until the commie capitalists embraced the shutdowns in the name of the China virus.
Yeah, but they said the same about the Clean Air Act in Los Angeles, and yeah, that was, if you compare pictures of LA from when it was unregulated to when it was regulated, it's just the Clean Air Act helped so much, like so much. So this whole thing of, well, just this whole thing of, I'm not sure we should do a back and forth on questions. See what you say, Justin. Of course, it's your call. But if there's a lot of questions, we may just want to do one. That's why I wasn't sort of inputting. But you're sort of taking one sort of thing that I'm not even sure is true and saying that applies to all policy ever made on environmental things, which is just. Well, you brought this up as an example, as sort of a, hey, they made 80 regulations. Yeah. A day, yeah, that's excessive. I don't know what, like, I don't know why environmentalism necessarily leads to 80 regulations a day. How does that follow?
You don't know that the regulations have gone pretty out of control under these liberal administrations?
Well, I don't think that 80 regulations a day is a real number.
Maybe Mark's a little right here. Maybe we're getting it a little bit back into the debate at this point.
All right.
In regards to these questions, it's a great topic. I let it go on, but I was just because it was very interesting. But yeah, you guys are right. We do have a ton of questions. So it was a question for Mark, though, so I'll let him have the last say.
All right.
Yeah, as I said, I wouldn't trust the companies to necessarily decide what to be regulated. I think that we can do reasonable legislation that will keep our air clean, keep plastics from accumulating in stockpiles and in dumps and sort of the waste that we see. I think that's more than reasonable. And I don't think appealing to 80 regulations a day is really a good reason why we shouldn't do it. That's just saying, hey, we should have a more efficient way of doing it that doesn't hamper industry as much. I think a good balance can be sought. The whole idea, it has to be either rampant pollution or 80 regulations a day. I don't think that's realistic. I think it can be a good middle ground.
All right, thank you. Our next question comes in from Robin Webster, easily our biggest super chatter tonight. Hake, we have a representative democracy, not direct. Black people don't own homes because of the system that was designed to prevent it. Were you educated at a public school or a religious school? Mark, thumbs up.
I was educated at both public and homeschool and a religious school. It's not a representative democracy. It's a representative republic, meaning we have a constitution, supposed to be a constitution with certain rights that are unalienable. But now we don't really have that anymore. And blacks were not prevented from owning homes and stuff like that. They were buying land and buying buildings pre so-called civil rights. Things were looking up, and they had their families together. The young people were working. Now they're unemployed and on welfare and buying disproportionately. And now we have grown Hispanic mothers running these jobs like McDonald's and all that stuff, instead of young people doing these so-called minimum wage jobs. So it's a backwards, upside down, senseless liberal society.
All right. So this is going to look a little bit like a super chat debate for you right now, Hake. So that was Robin
Nice.
Webster, $10. Robin then comes back again, $5. Hake, are you aware that the U.S. was founded on principles of liberalism and John Locke? Or is that John Locke?
John Locke.
Yeah, John Locke.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's nothing compared to the liberalism of today. You could be like, oh, these classical liberalism. Maybe that was a touch too girly too, but we've gone way past any sense of logic. A little correction on the it's 80,000 pages of new regulations coming out every year, passed into law by not passed into law by Congress, but written by bureaucrats at the different federal agencies in the Obama administration. So that's the correction there. That's not what John Locke was about. I'll tell you that much.
Then it passes laws.
No, it was not passed as laws.
Okay.
Those are regulations that were not passed as laws.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Bureaucracy stuff.
So Robin Webster comes back, $5. Women, homosexuals, handicapped, and minorities have better conditions than ever before. As a white male, does equality feel like persecution?
Is he asking me or is he asking Mark Reid?
Because it's Robin Webster who is the last two super chats. So
because Mark Reid is the one who seems to project that I have this persecution complex that I'm not running the world anymore. Oh dear.
Just quickly, equality doesn't feel like persecution as a white male to me. No, I would say no.
No, and there's no such thing as equality either. And I'm happy for them that they're living comfortable lives. They never had it so good. I wish that they would appreciate it for their sake. For all of our sake.
So another question for Hake, but Robin takes a break for a moment. Robin's been really supportive tonight, guys.
Nice.
So we got Dino again, $5. Hake, as a member of young generations, please stop talking for us. The older ones too, please just stop. Mark, send help, please.
I'm not aware that I'm talking for anybody. I do mention, the Zoomers it's tougher for them to afford homes, but I'm speaking about you, not for you. I speak for myself only, hopefully.
That's a great answer. Manga fan Dan, $5. The Great Reset says we will not eat meat. Sounds like they want me to be a beta male. In capitals.
No, the Great Reset says nothing of the sort. It's just those three things that I touched on, and that was the keynote address was grow greener, grow smarter, and grow fairer. That's the three things. It had nothing to do with veganism of any sort. So whoever told you that was just wrong. I'm sorry. I covered the three points in my opening, and even those 3 points, it was kind of vague on actual policy, as I explained. I'm not sure if you were here from the start when I went through it all. So eating meat has nothing to do with this thing, and Great Reset is just a buzzword for just the way that we're progressing into the future, essentially.
For context, though, I think it's important to mention that the eating meat thing is the cows are affecting the climate change. And bugs, I heard Tyson Food is getting into bugs for your protein rather than normal meat.
Oh, well, they're experimenting with that, sure. But that's sort of one of the challenges going forward is how do we feed an exponentially growing population? The population is currently about 8 billion, and it's going to grow exponentially from there. So if you aren't looking at how to feed the growing population and how to make things available for them, then we're really in trouble, because you've got to, there's tons of problems going forward. There's problems with water and access to water. There's problems with food and how we access food. There's all kinds of problems we have to look for, and that's exactly what the World Economic Forum is trying to do. How do we use technology to overcome these problems, not just stick our heads in the sand and pretend they're not actually happening?
Okay. So real quick, I'm just going to stop the super chat for a sec, because you guys may have noticed suddenly in the chat, Modern Day Debate, the channel is answering you. I don't know this for sure, but I think that's James. So make sure you guys show him some love, because I know how busy he is. For him to stop and come and join us and call us all a bunch of soy boys is pretty cool. Also, since I think he's watching, I'll take the time to remind everybody about DebateCon 4 tomorrow. Okay. We'll get right to the next question here, which is Robin Webster, $2. Your friend Hake. If a woman outshot you, would that damage your manhood?
Depends on where she shoots.
Oh boy. Okay. That's a great way to go to the next question.
That's very graphic image I'm getting right now.
She asked the question. Shout out to what's her name? Very supportive gal.
Robin Webster. Yeah.
Robin, Robin's awesome. I've met Robin before. She's awesome.
The Ware Lemur, $4.99. They write, Extions or Christians, I believe, built this country with their slaves.
Yeah, but we took care of the slaves. I mean, I think we treated the slaves. I know I treated my slaves pretty well, like a Christian should.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is getting juicy on the. I mean, the algorithm might not be able to
I
distinguish what's being said here.
Yeah, I think owning anybody as property is disgusting. I think slavery is highly immoral. There's no reason why we should own other people as a property, and some of the things done to them was absolutely horrendous. Don't get me wrong. I think there's probably slave owners that treat their slaves well, but there's also slave owners that beat them on a regular basis, and they were completely disenfranchised from any input into society at all. Like, I just can't believe that you're going to sit here and sort of say that slavery was great. What are you doing?
There were good and bad slave owners, and I'm glad to hear that you're against socialism and abortion.
What?
All right. This is gonna turn sideways pretty quick. I think if we don't.
I'm not. What? Yeah, that's a really weird comment.
Yeah, let's go.
Slavery
moving on.
And mistreatment of human beings.
All right. Yeah, the topic's uncomfortable, and we're not gonna carry
Understood.
On with it. But Robin Webster, she comes in a little hot on this one. You want it, Hake?
Go for it.
Okay. My woman logic beats your manly confusion any day.
All right. Suit yourself, lady. Appreciate it. Thanks for supporting.
Yeah. Doc Dino, again, not to be undone, big time super chats tonight. Doc Dino, $2. What would your ideal society be like to both? So, somebody start off and then the next fella answer.
I would say
yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go. Oh, okay. Well, so I think the best way is sort of what John Rawls talked about, which was the veil of ignorance. The best way to design a society is to design a society not where everybody's completely equal, but you're at least satisfied at any position that you arrive in society. It's much like cutting a cake. When you cut the cake, the person who cut the cake, who diversifies it, has the last piece. Like, everybody chooses first. So the veil of ignorance says, basically, imagine you don't know what position you're going to be in this society. You don't know if you're going to be one of the poor. You don't know if you're going to be one of the people on top. You don't know what part of society that you're going to be injected into in this hypothetical. The society that you should design is one where you would be happy, or at least content or satisfied with whatever rung of society you would be placed in. And that's how we sort of use empathy and sociology to evaluate the fairest societies.
The way I would organize society is with men in charge, leading with logic, people free to own their own stuff and not have the threat of the government taking it away from them if they don't pay their property taxes and all these ridiculous things. Freedom to do business and contract with one another for no money or for very little money or for whatever amount or whatever agreement that they agree to amongst themselves, and law and order.
Okay, thank you, fellas. Robin Webster, $2. Facts to support black people have it worse, please.
The destruction of the family has gone insane. If you've seen Black Lives Matter in the streets, you know that there is a lot of anger that is encouraged in the Black community. That's very self-destructive. You see the murder rates gone through the roof between one another. You see the constant crying of racism. When it's less, this supposed injustice is less than ever, but they're more miserable and more angry than ever. I think it's quite clear that that the Black community is worse off today morally and spiritually and in their mindset and clarity. Anybody who knows Blacks or sees the communities that they're so-called living in can deny that.
All right. Next, Anomic for $1.99 says that Mark loves statistics, then ignores FBI statistics.
I don't know what FBI statistics I'm ignoring, but yeah, I mean, statistical data analysis, as I said, cuts through emotion. We can analyze things in a way that is not subject to bias. There still is some interpretation. It's not perfect, absolutely not perfect, but it's a better way than sort of saying, well, I feel like people had it better in the past. We can quantify these things and actually measure whether they did or whether they didn't. And sort of by every metric, we did not have it better in the past. It's just, as I said, romanticized by people because they want to think that the good old days were better when in fact they weren't.
The crime rates went through the roof after the 60s. And, you know, in California, there were maybe 200 murders in 1955 across the whole country, the whole state. And then
What are they now?
that increased per capita by like tenfold by like the, I don't know, the 70s or 80s. And today it's still worse. It's still way higher than it was prior to the so-called civil rights movement. It's been pretty destructive.
All right. I'm happy when you want to respond, Hake, and that's great. And I encourage that. But every time you do, I'm going to let Mark finish because it was for him.
Cool.
So go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so the percentage change has varied a lot over the time, but sort of after the 60s, you really have a lot of crime happening, sure. But now that we're into the modern era, and what we're talking about is the modern era, so sort of going back to one period in history isn't really accurate to what we're seeing now, and it's sort of the lowest crime rates we've seen for quite some time. I mean, you can shake your head all you want, Hake, but that is the fact. So I don't know why we're sort of going back to one period and saying, hey, you know, if it was that modernization was creating worse crime rates, then we should be seeing it today, and we don't.
Okay.
Do you want me to explain my shake of the head? It was every time there's been a Black Lives Matter propping up, there's been a big spike in crime. That's why I was shaking my head. But I accept what you say.
But I mean, just a sharp spike in crime is like for protesting kind of thing is political crime. It's not exactly criminal crime.
Oh, no, political. I'm talking murders.
But you're talking murders specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean, murder rates have been the lowest they've been for ages. I don't.
And after there was the Ferguson effect, and then there was the George Floyd effect. It was great increase in crime. And they've been cooking the books in these cities to
so hide. For instance, during 1990, the murder rate was 9.82 per 100,000 population, right? It's now down to 6.81 per 100,000 population. It is at a low
compared to the 90s. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but to pretend that it has only ever gone down is.
Well, I didn't say that.
Reality. I know, but you're saying it's down, but it's actually up again, and it's untold numbers because we have a dishonest society.
No, it's not totally up. It's still way lower than it's been in the past. Like, that's the thing.
You suit yourself.
Are you good with that, Mark? We moving on, or do you got a final word?
Yeah. I mean, I can get some statistics on it.
For super chats,
I
mean, if this was debate time, perhaps, but for super chats, we got so many more questions.
Okay.
So, Issa Kaber, I apologize if I got that title wrong, but $2 says, "Good to see you, MR." I assume they're speaking to Mark. Hake, how about lynchings in the U.S.?
What about them? Is that just the question?
What about it?
Okay, there were something like 4,000, 5,000 documented lynchings by the Tuskegee Institute. 25% roughly were of whites, I guess 75 or so maybe blacks, and there were blacks who would lynch one another as well. It was a form of street justice, which I of course disavow. I don't like extrajudicial killings. I think you should have a due process. I guess there were, in some cases, distrust of the courts, just as there's distrust of the courts today. I heard a story told by the NAACP, so take it with a grain of salt. It's propaganda, but communist propaganda, by the way. But there was a story where people, and I wouldn't doubt it, people are evil. An alleged rapist was dragged out of court and lynched, and all kinds of horrible things happened to him by a mob. So what would happen was it was a perceived attack from an outsider on the community. So the men of the town felt that they needed to take the law into their hands and impose this street justice. It's not all that much different from the so-called Black Lives Matter lynchings in courts, granted, today, of these police officers who get way overcharged. So it's a shame. It was a matter of thousands. You have a few thousand. You have way more than that in a matter of 10 years in any given city. And that was a matter of a few thousand across 80 years. So it's way overstated and dramatized. There may have been horrific, unjust things, but it's taking little anecdotes effectively against a great evil of black on black crime and black on white crime and injustice in the courts that we have today.
So there was like 4,467 victims of lynching from 1883 to 1941, like a substantial amount. And the thing is that we don't know if these people were guilty or innocent. There's no way to tell because it's extrajudicial. There's no judicial process. We can't tell. So it is quite likely that a substantial amount of them were actually innocent of the crime and didn't actually do anything wrong. So this is the kind of thing that happened. And these wouldn't be considered part of the homicide rate because that was a legal thing to do. It was a lynching. So a horrible state of affairs that some of them were photographed. They were sold postcards of it, kind of thing. It was actually a really, really disgusting thing that I see no reason to return to the lynching of the 1920s and things like that.
Me either. Yeah. The blacks, when they would do it, they wouldn't necessarily document what the person or the alleged crime was, whereas the whites, because they were more illiterate per capita, and whereas the whites would document what the alleged crime was. But it was a rougher world that they lived in. Stakes were much higher. The theft of a cow could mean death for a family. So it was a rough world. I wouldn't want to go back to that.
Okay. Jabrail NTP 643 Canadian. Thanks a lot for the debate. Breath of sense at Hake.
Thank you.
Breath of sense
Appreciate
means. I think it's a
breath of fresh air with common sense.
Okay,
I gather.
Okay. It sounds to me like you added to that a little bit, but that's okay. Anomic 499. Mark keeps saying every metric shows this is the best time in history. Why do we need to abort 60 million babies if that's true?
Well, it's because we have a concept of bodily autonomy, and that I can't make somebody keep me alive against their will. It's just not something that we do. But that's an entire other debate. That's an entirely other debate. So, I mean, I'd happy to debate that, but that isn't today's debate. And there's nothing in the sort of Great Reset kind of buzzword that encompasses any kind of thing like abortion or any of these social issues. Like I said, it only really covers 3 issues. So I don't know. So this sounds like a dog whistle to me. Just you want to appeal to a certain demographic of people. So you're blowing on that whistle to sort of say, hey, here's an issue. Yeah, world has issues. Good, you
Okay.
noticed.
Um, we got Robin Webster again, $2. Mark Reid, Almighty God of Patience and Tolerance.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm not a god though. Like I'm just a person, just human, like everybody else. Just trying to do the best we can.
We got a big one here. Their name, spoiler alert. That's their name.
Nice.
$10. Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, Jainism. This feels like they're just messing with my French accent now. Have no object of worship, but are all classified as religion. A religion is nothing more than a system of morality. Modern leftism is clearly a religion. I think that's a poke at Mark.
Well, no, it all depends on how you're classifying a religion. So you could classify a system of of moral standards as a religion. In that case, well, let me finish. In that case, my religion would be secular humanism, not liberalism, right? Because that governs what I ought to do and ought not to do. So you're still wrong. But I think Jainism and things like that, and Buddhism does sort of have some spirituality about it, some worship of the divine that sort of can get you into nirvana. Jainism has the worship of the endless rebirth death cycle. So even though they're spiritualism and can be classified as religions, because they have tenets that's laid down. For instance, like in Jainism, you can't harm anything, even to the point of not being able to squish a bug kind of thing. That's what classifies it as a religion. Some people classify secular humanism as a religion, and I don't think that it rises to the level of a religion, but if you want to classify it like that, sure. But it's certainly like liberalism is political. It's not a religion. Sorry, you're still wrong.
He said leftism. I said liberalism, but to spoiler alert's point, he's talking about modern leftism.
Well, I'm assuming he's talking about liberalism when he says leftism. That's usually what people mean when they say it, kind of thing.
Ethicist, if you don't mind my jumping in, ethicist Dennis Prager distinguishes liberalism from leftism. He says leftism is the biggest religion right now, and he distinguishes it from liberalism.
Yeah, I don't really care what Prager's like. Dennis Prager,
the ethicist, yes.
Yeah, so the guy that runs Prager University, which isn't a university.
You can nitpick the name of his organization, but it's irrelevant to his point. It's kind of like a kind of
I don't really care what sort of Dennis Prager's got to say. I don't know why they're bringing up Dennis Prager.
Because leftism is quite clearly, people are quite possessed with their leftist ideology. Secular humanism, same thing. It's the same thing as liberalism.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that any sort of theologian is going to consider leftism as a religion. I don't know who's going to sort of say that, except Dennis as a metaphor, maybe. Really? What? Dennis Prager?
Last word, Mark.
Yeah, so Prager is just a guy. He hasn't even he left academia before he actually got a graduate degree, I believe. I don't see him you're basically doing an appeal to authority. You're basically saying, hey, this guy's an authority on it. No, he's not. Leftism is not under any classification in academia a religion. I don't know why you keep saying this. That would be saying conservatism or rightism is a religion. It's a nonsensical statement. It's not how we classify things, James.
Academia, academia is the authority on what's a religion.
Well,
men can see that people behave in a religious manner, especially leftists.
Yeah, but when they say
Hake,
when they say they behave in a religious manner, they're using it as a metaphor. Right. So you might be religious about scuba diving, right? It doesn't literally mean you're in a religion. You're sort of conflating how people use words metaphorically with the literal meaning and classification outlined of them.
Meaning liberals are insane.
I think there is some insanity going around, but I'm not sure it's liberals, mate. I think it's you. Like the whole point is that we classify things according to the properties that they have. And you're trying to say, hey, because we say that people believe in this thing religiously, therefore it is classified as a religion. And that is nonsense, because people believe in all kinds of things religiously. It's a do you understand what a metaphor is?
I understand that you don't want to understand. I understand you're trying to dig in and defend
then you haven't
liberalism.
Understood, because then you haven't understood, because I asked you, do you understand that
you're hiding behind your academics? It's fine.
No, it's the fact that when people say, like, if I say, hey, I use my phone religiously, right? Does that mean it's a religion?
No, because it
right.
sometimes is. Honestly, people worship their phones. They can't get away from their phones. In some ways, honestly, that is.
I think that's
a point to me, actually.
That's like insane. Like
the whole thing that you think, if I say I'm using my phone religiously,
then that's a religion. Like, that is misunderstanding anything about the world to such a vast degree. I don't know how if you're saying, hey, you love your kids religiously, that's a religion. You drink coffee religiously, then that's a religion. Literally, then the word religious becomes meaningless under Hake's definition. Doesn't mean anything, because anything can be a religion. It's anything can be
anything that you put as important as it becomes your God. I get that
then it's meaningless.
You want to be obstinate and you're blind.
No. You're being obstinate and you're being, blind, and you're refusing to understand the definition I'm using of the word.
Right, like, but you're not understanding the definition that I'm using of the word, nor anyway.
I'm good there.
Nice.
It's just getting, but I do feel, spoiler alert, got his $10 worth. But I also feel there was a question to Mark, so I do want him to have the last word. So Hake, I'll ask you to. Thank you, sir.
So anything done religiously doesn't make it a religion. There's all kinds of things. You can play squash religiously. You can collect rocks religiously. You can do all of these things. We're just using it as a metaphor for somebody's passionate about or feels strongly about. A religion, when you're actually talking in theology, is actually a system of worship that has tenets and sort of a doctrine that you have to follow. That is the definition of a religion under most normative definitions. It's just that Hake wants to basically apply to say, hey, well, my religion as Christianity, which does have a system of worship and doctrine that has to be followed, is the same as leftism, which is nonsense. It's a nonsense statement.
I agree.
All right. You still have to...
Sorry. That was okay. Messed up.
That one was mild, but I'm noticing when I say that last word. Yeah, it's fascinating a little bit, actually.
It's DQ.
So, next question. I call this a bit of a topic cleanser. Totally off topic, but he paid money. So, $5.60 spends $5 to say this debate was a topic, or this debate was all over the shop tonight. I agree. I kind of feel like, though, that might have been kind of the topic. So it was fun in that regard. In any case, time for a real question, he says. Who has the better chips, Macos or KFC? This is for both of you.
I've had KFC chips. What was the other one?
Maccas. Macos.
Macca's.
Okay.
Macca's. Yeah. So they're talking about McDonald's, right?
Oh, okay. So is that
it's Australian. We call it Macca's because Australians. It's funny. Australians will, every short word will lengthen and every long word will shorten. It's just something we do. I don't know why. So if you've got a friend Dave, it's Davo, or stuff like that, or Dave. We lengthen that. We shorten McDonald's to Macca's. I think that KFC chips are actually better. I do. I'm not a great fan of Macca's. I gotta say.
What about you, Hake?
I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've had KFC, and I didn't even know they offered what we call in America French fries, which Brits and Australians call chips.
Yeah. So I believe I can answer this a little bit better for The
All right.
person asking the question, yeah, KFC
We
in
didn't let Hake
America,
finish. Which is better?
because he
Which
was
is
about
better?
to let everybody know they serve mashed potatoes.
Yeah,
Nice.
they serve mashed potatoes here
Yeah,
too.
they don't have French fries at KFC.
Ah,
Oh,
So the comparison
America.
is, from what I
All right.
understand, yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
so you've never had chips from KFC?
Right. Didn't even
Wow.
know that they
Okay.
offered it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
I learned that in Vegas
Um.
once, so I was very surprised to find that out myself because we have chips
Wow.
or
Okay.
fries in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I could be wrong. We'll let the chat tell us. But in any case, all right,
Oh,
good topic cleanser.
apparently, I'm being roasted by the chat for choosing KFC over McDonald's. So I'm sorry.
What I know about
ladies and gentlemen.
Australians as well is they love their KFC. I did hear that somewhere.
I'm not a huge fan of it. If I'm gonna get chicken, I'll go to like there's a place called Red Rooster, which is like just a chicken place kind of thing. They're pretty good.
So let's get back to it.
Nice.
Anomic, $1.99. Wow, Hake likes the past when kids. Hake likes the past when kids are a blessing.
Yeah, I do. I liked when kids had their parents and the fathers had the kids. Did you know that fathers got the children in the rare case of divorce, not the mothers? That's wild. Things have changed so badly.
Right.
Well, I think I don't know what a blessing means. By the way, I don't know what that means.
I
but I
didn't
know
really
kids
understand
are
the question.
valuable. I think it's
Oh,
sort of.
I think he's
I think
taking a
it's
dig at
digging
abortion.
at me. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
well, not just that, but also sort of saying, hey, in the past we valued children more. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that children are still incredibly valuable and we should protect them and everything like that. But yeah, maybe he is. But I think that sort of, you know, in the olden days that you're talking about, also the death rate in childbirth was massive and kids died of polio and easily preventable diseases. We've got to move with the times. We've got to update our technology. We've got to implement it in a way that can help people. You're romanticizing the past.
I'm not sure who exactly the question was for, but
It was more for him.
okay. So
It was a
then
dig
we'll
at him.
stop right there, and we'll get to another big super chat. Cool Byko, $10. Hake. So this is for Hake. One of the reasons the fuel prices rise is the replacement of lead in gasoline. Would you advocate a return to such things as lead paint and gasoline or asbestos is building products? I think he meant in building products.
Oh, no, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think that that's a major factor in the increased price of gasoline. Maybe it is, but over the course of my lifetime, I've had unleaded gas all my life, of my driving days anyway. And I can't say that the continuing removal of lead from gasoline is why gas prices have increased. I think that's being silly. I could be wrong though. So
Okay.
no, I'm not for putting asbestos and all that stuff back in.
Okay.
Good.
So Anomic again, another big supporter tonight, $1.99. I imagine the WEF video "You Own Nothing, Be Happy."
World Economic
WEF.
Forum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I imagine the World Economic
World
Forum
Economic
video,
Forum.
"You
Yep,
Own
yep.
Nothing, Be Happy." There was a question mark on the sentence.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a question
Yeah.
to be
So
found
so
there.
it's about it's about this idea. It was never endorsed by the World Economic Forum, and the video was done by people trying to make it seem like, oh, this is being endorsed by the World Economic Forum. It's the way they're going kind of thing. No, that's not true. It wasn't the World Economic Forum that did the video. You're basically watching somebody who took that idea and said, oh, they're endorsing it and stuff. They never endorsed it. Don't be silly. They didn't do that. They're still talking about ownership of property and things like that. So that's patently, demonstrably false. They didn't endorse it.
They did tweet it out in 2016. You know how I said they didn't tweet. They did, whether it was not, you could argue that it wasn't an endorsement, but they tweeted this very provocative tweet. Welcome to 2013. Sure. I own nothing. I have no privacy, and life has never been better. Ida Alkin, as you pointed out. And they made a whole quote thing about it.
Yeah, but that was just announcing, like, sort of, so they have these forums on stuff, right?
No, I
so
get you.
You understand
you explained
the forum.
It well.
Yeah, so the fact that they tweet out the name of the essay that's going to be talked about, right? It doesn't mean that they endorse it. It's like modern day debate, having you on here, they don't endorse your ideas just because they tweet out something that you've said, right?
Right.
Right. So them tweeting out the name of sort of one of the things on the agenda doesn't mean that they're necessarily endorsing or wanting to implement this. It means it's just up for discussion. That's all.
All right.
Okay, next question. Same cloth for $2. Hake, does JLP pay you minimum wage?
I keep that information private, but I'll say that I don't work at a fast food restaurant at this time, so I'm not getting $20 an hour minimum wage.
Right. Cool Biko sends another $10. Hake, how much does the podcaster class cheapen the value of people who work real jobs?
I don't know how much in effect that has, but there are a lot of people who, quote unquote, work real jobs who sit around all day watching podcasts. And I suppose I disavow that because you should work while you're at work.
Right. Economic back again, $4.99. Mark pretending no trade-offs again. If 15 minimum wage is good, why not 30? Hake, I declare you the winner, and I have a lot of sway around here.
Yeah, so I don't think debates really have winners and losers. I don't think that kind of the idea is to have a good conversation and something that sort of you can investigate all sides of a topic. I think it's a loss when it turns into a garbage fire kind of thing, which is a loss for everybody, quite frankly. But that's my personal opinion. So the idea that we've got to there are trade-offs. I don't know why we're sort of saying that, but what I'm sort of getting at is that if you impoverish a certain class and you sort of have people not being able to buy products and buy houses and stuff, it's just necessarily going to lead to problems. Why not 30? Maybe that's a bit too much, but maybe as inflation ramps up, right? And this is the problem with the minimum wage. It hasn't kept in line with inflation. So the money keeps getting worth less, but you're being paid the same, right? So it's a devaluation of your income, not through it getting smaller, but just not changing while the money's being devalued. So maybe at some point in the future, if inflation keeps going the way it is, which Hake's got a really good point, inflation is really bad. It's not great. Like, I don't love the way that it's being handled. But that doesn't mean that the Great Reset is suddenly invalidated or a thing that's coming out or something, some big conspiracy. We might have to look at $30 an hour, when the money is worth half as less if inflation continues. But why shouldn't we get together and talk about the best way to implement policy so that people aren't a victim of inflation? I don't see why not.
All right, next question.
You got it?
All right, we're back. Slightly smaller audience. Sorry about that, everybody. It appears DebateCon tried to squeeze in on our time. But we'll give a few moments here. They're hard at work over there, in case you guys were wondering. We got James over there in Dallas with Ryan as well. Nice. I don't know what it's like when you get those two together, but there's probably a lot of horsing around going over there. Yes, Robin, we know you still had super chats. I've got them here. They're not gone. I copied and pasted them on the side, so not a problem. Don't sweat the super chats. I'm just gish galloping a little bit to allow people to trickle in, because I believe James is over there apologizing and asking people to come over here. Yeah, so once again, guys, don't forget tomorrow, first debate hitting the stage. We got Gets It, Wits It, and Leo. Hake.
Somebody said it's the Great Reset. That's great. That's awesome. I love it.
That's a really good one.
Who was that? Spoiler alert. Nice. I love it.
I just want to see if we can stall a few moments and wait for the numbers going up. So we're getting viewers coming back. So I'll just ask Hake, Debate Con.
Yes, sir.
Day 4, we got November 4th and 5th. What debate are you looking forward to the most?
You know what? I liked the sound of that that debate from the guy who's normally a flat earther. So I know that there are some serious people who don't appreciate him or me or Alex Stein, and I totally understand that, but I do look forward to that one.
What about you, Mark? What debate are you looking forward to over the weekend?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to Leo, because Leo's just an absolute champ, and
Leo's
I really
tackling like 4 or 5 debates this weekend.
Yeah. So not really any one particular one by Leo, but just all of Leo. He's absolutely fantastic.
Is that Leo Filius?
Yeah, Leo Filius. Yeah.
Nice. I've talked to
I
him
feel
before.
like that very first debate with Gets It and Leo is one heck of an opening debate for the weekend. I'm gonna need a dictionary and a thesaurus and all kinds of stuff to get through that debate. Those two have a vocabulary that is almost musical.
I am looking forward. Someone says the David Wood debate, and I'm certainly looking forward to that one as well. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Matt Dillahunty, of course. We got a couple. Robin, including Robin, saying looks like she's looking forward to Matt. I don't know how
Wood
many
versus Aaron Ra. I mean, that is an awesome. That's going to be really, really fiery and good. That's going to be a really good debate.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. I'm not sure how many more people we're going to get trickling over here. So let's just hope that we've got enough people here that we can still have a good time, and that most of those who sent super chats in will get them read and get to hear them here. So I believe the last one we left off was the $15 minimum wage. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. And I tried to jump in there with, I know that you guys wanted to move on quickly, but I tried to jump in there with Mark Reid, Atheism, mentioned about the fact that you kind of have to raise minimum wage to accommodate the higher cost of living. Mm-hmm. And I had mentioned earlier in the debate, without using the term, price inflation caused by minimum wage.
All right. My apologies for getting Gets It's and him wrong. It's Gets It, Wits It. I keep saying something else apparently. Thank you. I see spin. I don't mean it by any disrespect whatsoever. It's an awesome name.
Wits It Gets It. Yeah.
Wits It Gets It. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds cool either way we go. So $15 minimum wage. Yeah. So same cloth, $2. Hake, define socialism.
Socialism is mama spirit, controlling people and redistribution of wealth. I think that's good enough. If that, hopefully that.
I think the means of production sort of is in there somewhere, but sure.
Yeah, nice.
Robin
I
Webster.
hope this is $2 worth.
Well, Robin Webster
exactly
wants to see
$2 worth of definition. That's exactly $2. Not a cent more, not a cent less. Exactly $2.
That's the Goodwill Dictionary version. All right, so Robin Webster, Hake, so she sends another $2. Is this your brain on Fox? And then she says she's glad you're a minority.
Nice. Yep.
That one had some bite to it. Sorry about that. My
main source of news, believe it or not, is CNN and the Skim, the ladies at the Skim who compile information from Reuters and other mainstream media. But Fox News, cool. It's all right.
Someone wants another definition from Hake. The Ware Lemur, $4.99. Hake, define commie capitalism.
Yes, thank you. Commie capitalism is when these big corporations and this big government are kind of in bed with each other, and they're on the same team against real men like our greatest president, Donald J. Trump. They were both on a mission to dethrone him from the presidency. We want, get your votes in, and the implication is vote against him, vote him out. Commie capitalism is opposed to Christian capitalism, which is more just mutual benefit, whereas commie capitalism is, oh, don't let these little guys compete with us. Bring in more regulations that we can afford to absorb, but the little guys, the up and comers, the innovators cannot. That's what I call commie capitalism.
That definition had a lot more in there. So I see Spin, the gentleman who corrected me on what's its name, sends $5, who says, HR and Mark, do you think it's important to challenge one's own beliefs and consider alternative perspectives? Why or why not? The last question was Hake, so Mark, you go ahead first.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we sort of, in these forums, people bring up ideas that are way out of left field, like the idea of sort of owning nothing and the idea of total ownership of things. We examine them and process them, see what sort of conclusions we can make. This is why forums and debates and people talking about it is so important, because whatever, I see it as whatever is best for humanity in general, not just the people up the top, but also the people down the bottom, is important. And that's why sort of the thing that Hake brought up about own nothing and stuff, it was brought up as something to discuss because it is so far out of left field. But I don't think anyone's seriously endorsing it. That's just something made up by sort of the people that want to see these conspiracies and things. But at the end of the day, really, we've got to sort of make some objective and some analytical evaluations of the consequences of what we put into practice. And there's people that are specialized in making those predictions. So I would rather listen to them who have sort of, can predict what's going to happen when we do these things rather than others.
I guess that's for me now, huh? The different ideas and debate and discuss. Was that the gist of the question?
Yeah,
I am for freedom of speech, especially for freedom to tell the truth. We don't tend to have that nowadays. That is shunned. It's shamed. There are things called hate speech nowadays. It's creeping into people's mindsets and even laws in some cases. And that's a real shame. So I do support hearty discussion. I don't think it should be eggheads and experts making the decisions on policy. They can have their little input, because sometimes they do bring in interesting information that you may not be aware of, that can bring light to the situation. But so often nowadays, statistics and all that stuff is used for propaganda. It's facts are not truth. People lie with facts. There are alternative facts that lead you to the bigger picture. What I love about President Trump, our greatest president, Trump, that is that he was a big picture guy. He told the truth on a big picture level, and then the little nitpickers pretended that he was lying about things that were actually largely true.
Yeah, he didn't tell the truth a lot of the time, actually. And, he's currently being prosecuted and has been found guilty for manipulating his financial statements. So you've got a really weird idea of the truth when somebody has literally committed fraud to inflate their properties and devalue it in other circumstances in order to gain a an advantage in the system, and even he said he took advantage of the system, but what he did bypassed sort of loopholes and went into illegality, which is inflating your value for the banks in order to get loans and deflating it in order to avoid tax, which is illegal. So he's not just a liar, he's also literally a criminal and can no longer run businesses in New York because of the criminality. So, I mean, you can shake your head all you want, but this just seems like you have rose-colored glasses where it comes to this man, because he has been found guilty of it, and that's the truth.
No, you have poop-colored glasses towards this man, because you're thinking that this judge and this
No, I don't.
this liberal black female attorney general of the New York who's bringing a civil lawsuit against the president, it knows more about what went on between those businesses. He paid back those loans. What fraud? He paid back those loans.
Yeah, so it's fraud when you lie to banks about your value in order to get loans. That is against the law. Now, whether or not you pay back the loans, that is still against the law. So what it seems like you're advocating, and anybody else would be in prison for doing that because it is fraud. Because what you're doing is, when you're going to pay tax, you're devaluing it so you don't have to pay tax on the properties. And that's exactly what he did. So in all of this, you know, Trump did break the law, and no one should be above the law. And in actual fact, you're wrong about Trump. I think he did some good things. I think his idea of a space force and things like that were actually pretty revolutionary. It's a good idea, and I will acknowledge when someone has a good idea, even if I dislike their other policies. So you're wrong about that, Hake.
Wrong about what?
So real quick, since it was Mark that interjected on Hake's answer to the question,
sorry, yeah, my bad.
Hake, go ahead and finish the question, please.
Oh, by and large, he was hated. President Trump was hated for telling the truth. When he first announced in June 2015, he told the truth about they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. And that was that was a factual statement, and he withstood boycotts and all kinds of things. NBC and all these businesses turned on him, and he stood on the truth and didn't back down. And it was so refreshing. And he's just a real guy. So they hate him for that.
Okay. Next question. So who's Rich Purnell $1.99? What would either say about WEF and New World Order?
What? What would who say?
Who would either of you say about the WEF and New World Order?
Well, I mean, WEF is just a forum to discuss financial stuff. It isn't sort of the big monster that it's made out to be. It has leaders from around the world come together to discuss, because if you like it or not, we're now living in a global economy. What happens in one country will affect others. Look at the instance that I used with Russia, the war in Ukraine, and Russia's stopping the gas flow to the rest of Europe. We all affect one another. It's pointless to bury your head in the sand and pretend like these things don't affect one another. I don't advocate for, like, I don't know what you mean by New World Order. If you're talking about a one world government, I'm not necessarily an advocate of that. I don't think it's beneficial at the moment. Could it be beneficial at some point in the future? I don't know. We'd have to look at that and see if it is in fact beneficial or not. But this whole idea that that's what they're discussing to do is just nonsense. It's conspiracy theory rhetoric that has no basis in reality. Nobody is trying to implement a one world government at the moment. Sorry, they're just not.
Go ahead, Hake.
Oh, okay,
Hake?
So World Economic Forum, I don't know much about them. I do see them as one of many groups who follow this religion of liberalism and push their false ideals towards society. I don't think that it's pure economics, and their sense of economics is kind of off. They're liberals, you know. And this New World Order stuff, it has been a push towards United Nations, the European Union, NATO, and NATO kind of imposes these false liberal values that should have nothing to do with military defending of one another, such as you have to embrace this LGBT equality notion on these different countries. So I think that centralized governments at a big scale are largely a mistake. They're a place for great levels of injustice to happen. I think that you want local control where you can confront the authority who's making decisions and actually potentially have some say on what goes on in your town, in your county, in your state, as opposed to trying to reach the state government or the federal government or the United Nations that's trying to accuse the United States of racism and human rights abuses against blacks. It's pretty ridiculous. Some of the most corrupt police have been federal police officers. You know, these groups, FBI and all that stuff, CIA, and they've been immune. They can lie to us, but we can't lie to them. They've been immune to being held responsible. So I'm not for that stuff.
I think some of the most corrupt police officers have actually been local sheriffs, to be honest with you.
Maybe so.
Okay. Robin Webster's back. Feel like this one's got a little bit of teeth on it.
Nice.
No pun intended. You want it, Hake?
Yes, please.
Were you raised in the South by wolves?
I was raised in Southern California by maybe if you want to call parents wolves in sheep's clothing, you could say that, but they meant well, you know, just as every parent, every father and mother does their best. And I had a grandpa from Virginia, so I guess that's the South, but he wasn't really into the the Confederate thing or anything like that. Although I do sympathize with the beautiful South, and shout out to the wolves as well.
So we're gonna backtrack just a second, just a couple questions quick, only because it was IC Spin's first ever super chats today here on Modern Day Debate, and he was trying to get our attention in the regular chat to clarify his question. So I remind the question was, do you think it's important to challenge one's own belief and consider alternative perspectives? So I told him, go ahead, clarify with me, and I'll say. So
nice.
He wants to know. I assume
Okay.
he. I apologize if it's not a he. If you believe it's important to challenge their own beliefs and be open to being wrong, basically open to being wrong, and they think you misunderstood.
Oh, okay.
So I guess, are you guys both comfortable with being wrong?
Yes.
Yeah. I love when I realize things that I totally thought otherwise or did not realize. And the pride does get involved, and you don't, sometimes you don't want to you cling to you identify with a belief, but overall I love that stuff, of course.
All right.
I'm a skeptic, so I always consider that I might be wrong about things. I think that there is the possibility of being wrong about almost everything. I think that all you can do is use rationality and critical thinking to try to come up with the most reasonable conclusions you can. And there is a way through logic of doing that seems to have the best outcome.
All right, thank you, Mark. And IC Spin is very grateful that we revisited their question. So totally worth it.
Nice.
I'll give you one guess who the next question is, Hake.
Robin that one
Webster.
gal who's supportive.
Yeah, she's big time. Wants to know, Hake, differences between socialism and communism.
Communism is socialism at the butt of a gun, is what I've heard from the expert Bill Lockwood, who appears on the Jason Lee Peterson show last Tuesday of the month, typically. Or at the end of a gun, not the butt of a gun. At the point, at the barrel of a gun.
Okay. Robin Webster, $2. I don't understand this one. So if this means something,
Okay.
can either pull smoothbore tank loaded with milk?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
I
zoned
think
out.
it's a trucker thing. I think can either of you pull or either
Yes,
pull a
yeah.
smoothbore tank loaded with milk?
So Robin is a trucker that carts milk basically.
Nice.
So I take my hat off. I take my egg noggin off to Robin, who can haul milk way better than I possibly could. Um,
Okay.
like I wouldn't even try to compare myself with Robin Webster.
All right. Can you do it, Hake?
I can do anything I set my mind to, and if she
Right
trains
now,
me,
where
I
you
probably
sit,
could.
can you do it?
No.
Okay.
Not a real man,
Uh,
then. Not a real man.
um, apologize for the name here. Uwali Blue Vegan, $2. MDD thrives on platforming. Oh, should have read that one first. Yeah, we don't thrive on platforming those kind of people. We thrive on platforming anyone who wants to come have an honest discussion from anywhere of any walk of life. Otherwise, it would just be sitting here, a bunch of people talking about the exact same thing. It wouldn't be very interesting at all. I mean, I see this kind of comment in the chat when I'm just a viewer of modern day debate, and seeing people are all get mad at flat Earth debates. Meanwhile, 600 people watching. So they're a little fun. You guys can't lie. I know you like them. Maybe just a bit. Robin Webster again, $2. Prager U is an indoctrination of hate and white supremacy.
That's irrelevant to that's a irrelevant to Dennis Prager's point about religion and leftism. And I don't think that's exactly true. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know why I would trust a conservative radio talk show host for, anything to do with that. I mean, he calls this thing a university. He's not a university. He's a radio disc jockey. That's what he is.
Disc jockey, I don't know if that's accurate, but anyway, he's a talk show host.
Really? Are you sure that Egghead is accurate? I'm not sure.
You could call him an egghead. I
Okay.
wouldn't be. He might even agree with you on that.
Right. I'm just saying that if you're talking about sort of creative language, you've used your fair
All
share
right.
this
I
debate
gotcha.
as well. Yeah.
So for Hake, is calling something a religion an insult?
No, not necessarily. Like when I called liberalism a religion, because they worship women, they worship self, they worship their emotions, and believe things that they imagine in others. You saw my opponent imagine that I believe different things. Like I'm sad that I'm no longer in charge of society. That's called either playing around and making fun of me, which is fine, or if he really believes that, that's believing your imagination.
Okay. Cool Byko back again with another $5 for Hake. Do you advocate for the curtailing of CEO wages to prevent inflation?
Does that work? Not necessarily. I believe in freedom. I don't think that I think that these CEOs wouldn't be such fat cats necessarily if they had to compete more with these little guys who are stifled by commie capitalism. I could be wrong,
Okay.
though. Maybe everybody would do well.
Yeah, it's just weird that you sort of oppose wage increases for the people that need it the most, and you'll approve it for people that need it the least.
By force, wage increases by force, like I said, it increases price inflation, which it just increases the cost of living effectively.
But you just said you don't oppose it for CEOs and people at the top.
Whatever, because that's a price cap. That's anti-freedom.
All right.
Nice.
Let me find my spot here. So Cool Byko comes back again, another $5. So yeah, not to oversell Robin, but Cool Biko has been active with us tonight as well. Hake, should people making fun of? Mark, this one's a little poke at you. Almost, it sounds like you.
Oh,
Cool
go for
carry
it.
on?
Yeah, no, I'm
right.
all about that.
At
Yeah,
Hake, should
go.
people making fun of baldness be torn apart by bears?
Oh.
You know
should
that
they?
reference?
Yeah,
I don't know the reference,
Okay,
but
good.
the chat's been going
It's from
on
the Bible
also.
in the Old
Oh, okay.
Testament. I can't remember which book, but what they made fun of an old man's baldness, and they were torn apart by specifically she bears. It was she bears.
Okay. The chat also was going off earlier, and I don't know if it's an inside joke or what, but they were commenting about hair and Hake's hair. And how
Oh yeah,
great
it's
it
an
is.
inside joke. There was a black caller who called into the Jesse Lee Peterson show. I'm on his network and said Hake has the best hair on the internet, and he was really hyped and be. You know, blacks are very entertaining. They come up with instant meme worthy catchphrases, and I'm not going to complain about it.
Okay. More super chats coming in. Here we go. Ulawe Blue Vegan again, $2. JLP likes men. Hake, has he called you pretty yet? Oh, I should have read that one.
I think that's a bit. Yeah, I think that's a bit.
Yeah, that one was
contentious.
Yep. Sorry, I was copying down a new super chat that came in, and I just started reading out the side of my eye. We'll just skip over that one. Spot now. Right. Okay. So Robin Webster wants to ask Hake for $2. Another definition. Define critical thinking.
Critical thinking. I don't know that I've ever used that term. I don't know that it's such a real thing. You should examine yourself and your assumptions for sure. So that may be part of what people mean by critical thinking, and use logic rather than assumption and imagination and emotions.
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, I mean, basically, it's just using logic and rationality. Like when you're talking about what's logical and rational, you're talking about sort of what leads to necessarily to one conclusion. That's basically critical thinking. I don't know if you've sort of looked at philosophy a lot.
I have not looked at it a lot. I question the notion of thinking for oneself. Do we really think for ourselves? I've wondered about that a little bit, but that's maybe more philosophical.
Who's supposed to think for you? I mean, if you're not thinking for yourself, who's thinking for you? Who else is supposed to think for you?
I don't know. Like it's sort of a free will question. It's an interesting question, where thoughts come from and how we cling to beliefs and things like that.
Well, that's epistemology. Yeah, that's the study of where your beliefs come from. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, you good to carry on, Hake?
Yeah.
Okay. So next one, I'm not sure. I'm gonna say it, but I don't know what it means. Cool Biko, $2. Israelis equals Palestinians. Sorry, I screwed that word
Israelis are Palestinians?
I don't know.
I wish them both well, man. It's a rough situation.
I think someday we might have some debates for that, I think. But right now, I think maybe it's a little warm of a topic. But IC Spin will come in with another topic cleanser, as we'll call it, for $1.99. Off topic. Do we live on dirt? Or I think there was some emojis here, and it's supposed to be, do we live on a dirt ball?
Yes, definitely. Ball Earth. Absolutely. I'm a ball tard forever.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, oblate spheroid, sure.
Yeah. Amazing Asia.
I better hope I do. I've debated the subject a few times, so you'd better hope so, or else I'm just a liar.
Amazing Asia, $1.99. Just putting their 2 cents in to say Hake won.
Nice. Appreciate it. Everybody's a winner in their heart.
I see spin back
which I don't
again.
believe.
This time not the full $5, just $4.99. With an actual definition here, it looks like copy pasted. Religion, a noun, the belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods.
That's what they make. Mark, that one Mark Ruffalo guy said, "Oh, I met something God is a black woman," and they're making women and mothers gods, and it's a shame. I decide who lives or dies. It's evil.
We're almost there. We're almost there. So we got Boss Man Squeegee, $10. Just pre-reading. Okay. Hake, are you in favor of a complete capitalist society? If so, how would we protect against monopolistic actions done by companies that we, the people, would not have any control over?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if I'm for quote unquote complete capitalism. Capitalism is a tool that can be used for good or evil. That's why I say commie capitalism versus Christian capitalism. And much of the Christianity is not right. I don't know if the companies were not allowed to get in bed with the government, would they be able to become monopolies? I don't know. Maybe we can break up some of these oligopolies and encourage ownership and allow for the right of ownership of your property, your land, and all that stuff.
So I kind of agree with Hake on this, actually. I think that the biggest problem is the use of money lobbying the government. So I've seen this sort of documentary called Saving Capitalism, where a capitalist was looking at what we have to do to keep it going, to keep it sustainable. And the problem comes with a cyclic effect or a cycle of companies making profit, lobbying the government with that profit, then changing regulations to make them more profit. And that sort of is a cycle of money to power, to money to power, to money to power, that sort of really makes it unfair. So I'm sort of in favor of a mixed economy. I do like capitalism, and I do think it's beneficial in terms of innovation. Competition does drive innovation a lot of the time. But I do think it needs to be regulated so that people who are making money have less power in society, that they can't leverage that wealth into political power.
All right. Just the emoji was a pizza, not a ball. So it was asking if we lived on a dirt pizza. But Icy Spin got the answer they wanted.
Only if the
regardless.
pizza's rolled into a ball.
Yeah, they just wanted to know what your thoughts were.
With fire in the middle, or magma.
I would argue that the earth is not made of crust with dirt on it. Last question, same cloth, $2. Hake, what do you disagree about JLP?
I disagree when he calls me beta. I say alpha. That's about it. There's different things that he says that I don't understand, but anyway, what were you saying?
Part of his stable doesn't that make you sort of beta by your own definition? That you sort of
I guess so.
Behind him.
Well, I'll just to wiggle out of being beta, which there's only either alpha or beta with him. I'll go to the Vox Day thing and call myself Delta, which is like a worker bee type of a man.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, working for somebody doesn't make you beta necessarily. It's good to own your own business, of course. But people are all in all sorts of situations in life. You can be a homeless bum and then turn into an alpha and just be working your way up. You can't necessarily judge the homeless bum as a beta just because he's in that situation.
But if Jesse Lee Peterson tells you have to do something, do you do it?
I ponder it and then I do it of my own volition, my own alpha volition.
Oh, right, that's how that works. Okay.
I've never said, "Oh, I'm alpha," in like trying to seriously say that I'm alpha. I don't I tend not to try to make that claim, any claims.
Robert Wells in the chat doesn't super chat, but it's only because like he caught me on something that's like, oh my god, I can't believe I said it now. Earth is dirt on a crust, isn't it? Actually,
I
it's
know,
just
I
not
caught
bread.
that. I was thinking
Yeah,
about
Robert Wells is like, Earth is dirt with crust on it. It's oh my, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're right. It is. You're right. You're right.
Technically correct, which is the best form of correct.
Yeah. I did say it that way. All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for the great debate. It was a good time. Even though we had a technical difficulty there in the middle, I don't even know what happened, but I'll just blame James because, I mean, he's not here. So
I think another couple of super chats came in.
Oh,
as
really?
well. Yes.
Oh, yep. There, look at that. Okay. Well, luckily they were big ones, so they stayed hovered for me. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get to those. No one left behind. Um, good call, Mark. Thank you so much. I would have.
No worries, mate. No worries.
Samir Farzane, $5. Digitizing money would have many benefits, like reducing theft, fraud, tax evasion, but would give total control to Gov. What's your thoughts? A lot of questions went to Hake. Let's start with Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that digitizing money does have a lot of benefits, but there are drawbacks as well. The inflation problem we're talking about, money is already essentially digitized. It just has some sort of value that's sort of come out. But yeah, I think it is a cost benefit thing. I think that I don't think that the way that we transfer money between banks and things can be done with any kind of physical respect. Like imagine having to wait for a physical thing to get there in order to draw upon your account. It'd be ridiculous. So I think the benefits do outweigh the hindrances, but we've got to keep in mind that that money has to have some sort of something solid to back it up. At the moment, it's basically the value of the country that is printing the money, but we've got to be cognizant of that if we devalue the money too much, that might actually outdistance the worth, and then you have worthless currency kind of thing. Like I think what China's doing at the moment, which is sort of printing money ad nauseum, is probably going to bite them unless they can build an infrastructure to support the value of it, which is what they're trying to do. But we'll have to see how that turns out.
I agree there. Oh, where was that?
I was handing it to you.
I agree. There are big concerns about the backing of the money. I think that people can be valuable. People themselves can be valuable, or a drain on society, depending on not just how old they are, but just how they're raised and all that stuff. Whether they're committing crimes or whether they're working and doing stuff good in the world, and that contributes to the growing of the economy, I think, because people create value. And at one point in the discussion, Mark Reid said that sometimes these people do great for, like the landowners did great necessarily for the expense. He may not have meant it necessarily at the expense of those who don't own land. That's not necessarily the case. It behooves decent people for everybody to do well, for things to be fair. And the problem with fairness in a digitized currency is that a corrupt government, which there's always going to be corruption in any government, it has the citizen by the guts, if you will, to keep it clean, and can or whatever company can do that, can just debank you effectively. We've already seen that happening to people who say banned things, even in America. And so it's an interesting situation right now. It's a danger of sorts, for sure.
Right. Ryan is in the chat. He has landed in Texas for DebateCon 4. So anyone else who is in that Dallas area, make sure you head over there to see James, Ryan, and all the gang, except for, well, at the very least, the three of us, where we are. We have another super chat, a couple more here that have come in naturally here. Robin Webster dunking another $5. Hake, no hate here. I believe you have chosen the wrong boogeyman to fight against. We are all just apes, all the same, and equal. I think they meant equally immature, and they give you a peace sign.
Nice. I appreciate you, Robin. And the boogeyman that I really believe is real is the evil that works in me, in you, in everyone. And each person has to check himself or herself, even when battling it out with disagreements like this. Because, you know, like the Christians are not perfect, or else they would still be in large and in charge.
Awesome. Hey, Mark, you want to do a definition?
Sure.
Mark, please into the break for $1.99. Mark, please define the Great Reset. Because we just spent 4 hours
the
trying
start
to do
of the debate without saying you missed the start of the debate. Right. So the Great Reset is a buzzword regarding three main things. These are three things: greener growth, smarter growth, and fairer growth. So it's just a way to do a recovery that focus on technological development and change of industry into the fourth industrial revolution. Basically making things more sustainable without waste and pollution, and making more equitable outcomes for people, you know, over the course of things. It's got nothing to do with the social things that Hake Brook has, nothing to do with any of these things. That's all it's about. It's very vague, but if you want, just watch the introduction. I go through all of it. I had even a slideshow, so you know, yeah, it's all in there. I defined it pretty thoroughly, wouldn't you say, Hake? I mean, that was pretty thorough.
Yeah, I liked that information. I think that we would be remiss, although it has nothing to do with the definition, were we not to mention that it has been said by like Klaus Schwab or something that some of these people, maybe Nikki Haley, maybe Justin Trudeau, are World Economic Forum little star graduate people in these different governments around the world. It's worth at least mentioning it. We would be remiss for not mentioning it on this video stream.
Well, did you watch any of the video? I mean, all of the speakers from the World Economic Forum is available on their web. Did you watch any of it?
I listened to one thing out of their from their discussion about it was during the virus and the climate crisis thing. They were talking about getting help to people, getting it more efficient, and all that stuff. I did not watch any of what you're talking about.
Okay. Well,
so
I mean,
the question was for Mark. So, Mark, if you could close the question for me right here.
Yeah. So it's all up there. They're basically talking about how we do these three things, implement these three things, because we foresee problems coming up with things like pollution, with things like you know, like I brought up, like young people not being able to, in any possibility of owning their own home, unless they're in a sort of very, very high up rung of the ladder. If they're a middle income earner, they still won't be able to avoid their own home with the way that inflation is going and sort of the way things are happening. So that's what they're discussing. And just because people bring up ideas doesn't mean they're implemented or they want to do it. It's just a forum for discussing it. So the Great Reset was just a buzzword for how we're going to recover from the COVID crisis and make things better for our society. That's all it is. It's just a buzzword.
All right. Last super chat. IC Spin $1.99. Questions. Who can we trust? What are your sources? It's a softball to whoever catches it. Go for it. I don't know.
Well, I answered the last one. Go for it, Hake, and I'll answer.
I suggest trust, but question your own common sense when you're looking at things. You don't have to, you're as smart as the experts, as JLP says. In many ways, they can give you information that you may not know, but they don't necessarily have the sense to come up with the right solutions. And don't just blindly trust a doctor who tells you anything. Be willing to question the doctor. Be willing to question whoever. It's your life, and to entrust your life in the hands of a politician or a doctor or a preacher or whatever guru that you may believe in is ill-advised. Keep your wits about you. Stay present.
All right, and with that message, that's where we'll end things off. So, real quick,
Well, I just want to quickly say, my
sure.
sources, I sort of get them from.
Hake, I will let you. Or, no, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't too Hake.
Ahead,
it wasn't.
You're right.
Yeah. So I usually get my sources from economists and the people that have actually studied this kind of thing. And Hake's right. You can't 100% trust them, but that's why we have a process of peer review, so all of the experts can go through. The thing is, you wouldn't, like, while it's fine to question a doctor and get a second opinion, you wouldn't go out and ask somebody down the street what you should do about your medical condition, nor should you. And you shouldn't rely on just your own judgment, because somebody that has trained all their life to be in medicine is going to be better for you deciding what to do for yourself. So I think that this whole distrust of experts is really misplaced. You wouldn't, just sort of leave somebody to fix your car that has no idea what they're doing. You go to a mechanic. You wouldn't leave your IT to somebody that has never worked in IT. You would go to an IT specialist. We can't possibly know everything. There's so many different specialities out there. So we have to specialize. That's the current, we have to. And so you have to go to somebody specialized in what you want information about. And so I would go to university papers, reputable institutions that have a history of providing factual results, and places where I can get the information that I need. I don't think just relying on my own judgment is a particularly sound way to go about getting information.
All right, and with that message, we'll say our goodbyes here to everyone. So first of all, those of you who found your way over to here after the other stream miraculously and mysteriously just ended, thank you so much. More than half of them came over here and found us, so they were very interested to hear the rest of what you guys had to say. Hake, where can people find you?
TheHakeReport.com. I do have a YouTube channel as well as Rumble and other platforms. I'm on Twitter, The Hake Report. I really appreciate you guys. And I'm also the producer of Church with Jesse Lee Peterson. As Mark Reid, Atheism, mentioned, I am on JLP's network.
So, Mr. Mark Reid, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm hanging out at my channel, Mark Reid Atheism. I usually do theology. I don't do sort of sociology a lot. So this was a really good debate, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much to James Hake and to Modern Day Debate. So if you like to see debates, I'll debate all kinds of subjects. I will do conversations and discussions, and I generally enjoy myself over on my channel. So come along, have a laugh. I'm also doing an after show just where I can chill out and decompress. So everyone's more than welcome to come in and join that if they want to give their opinion. All I just ask is people be respectful of one another and have meaningful conversations. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your time. And this has been a blast. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, this was a great one. When it blacked out for a second, it was very disappointing, but I'm so glad that everybody came over here. Jan, $1.99. Hake, is the Earth only 6,000 years old?
I don't
Yes or
think
no?
that I'm necessarily a young Earther. I don't know, but I don't think I'm a young Earther.
All right.
So I'll say no, I don't think so. I wasn't there.
Not a Yerfer. Not a Yerfer. Okay, that's at least there you go. That's something I can appreciate.
All right.
That's
In any case, both of these gentlemen are on the internet all the time. You guys can check them out if you want to talk to them some more. You can leave comments in their chats. But in the meantime, we're going to end things off here. Mark, as he said, is having an after show. Mark, if you'll have me, I'll come on over. I'll hang out.
Yeah,
I
sure.
put the
Everyone's
link
welcome.
to the after show in the chat here too for anyone else who is interested in coming over and saying hi. And yeah, thanks for the great debate and DebateCon 4 Dallas. So if you don't have your tickets, I will be in the chat all weekend watching these live debates. And the first one goes live in just less than 14 hours from now. So have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing this video, and I want to give a big thank you to all the channel members whose support allows me to bring you more content like this in the future. Thank you so much, everyone.